Beloved soul, welcome to this sacred journey, a masterclass of divine wisdom flowing through the timeless teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. What you are about to experience is not merely a series of talks, not a passing stream of inspiration to soothe you for a moment, but a great river of spiritual power, a living transmission that can lift your consciousness, heal your heart, and transform the way you walk through this world. Imagine sitting at the feet of a realized master, a soul who has walked beyond the illusions of matter, who has tasted the infinite joy of spirit, and who now speaks directly to your heart to awaken the divine remembrance you have long forgotten. In these next hours, you will be guided through hidden truths and sacred practices that saints and sages have guarded for lifetimes. Truths that, when absorbed with devotion and sincerity, can change the entire course of your life. We will begin with a sacred morning teaching. Listen to this every morning and watch your life transform, where Yogananda will help you rise each day, not as a body burdened by worries, but as a radiant soul in harmony with divine purpose. From there, we journey into the inner sanctum of energy and light, with the 7 chakras are not what you think, where you will see how these spiritual gateways are far more than colors and symbols. They are ladders for the soul's ascent into God realization. We will then uncover the celestial map of your destiny in what your birth chart says about your soul's mission. Here, Yogananda reveals how the stars do not bind you, but instead offer a blueprint for your highest spiritual unfolding, helping you to walk the path you were born to walk. From there, you will be led into the divine temple of your own body, in your body was meant to heal without medicines. Yogananda will unveil 7 sacred laws of vibrational health, showing you how to awaken the body's innate self-healing power by harmonizing with spirit, so that health becomes not a struggle, but a natural expression of your soul's energy. Finally, in this world is not real, here's what is. You will be gently but powerfully guided beyond the illusions that hold humanity in suffering, into the higher truth of existence, where fear of loss, death, and limitation dissolve completely in the light of divine remembrance. Beloved, this is not an ordinary listening experience. It is a pilgrimage for your consciousness, a masterclass for your soul. If you give your heart fully to these teachings, if you listen not only with your ears but with the silent yearning of your spirit, you will leave this journey transformed. You will know not just ideas about truth, but the living vibration of truth itself awakening within you. Remain until the end, for every word is a step, every revelation a key, and every moment a golden thread leading you closer to the eternal home of joy and freedom that Yogananda came to share with you. Sit back, close your eyes if you wish, breathe slowly, and allow the Master's voice to guide you inward, upward, and beyond into the radiant presence of your own divine self. When you open your eyes each morning, you are not merely waking from sleep, you are returning from the borderlands of eternity. In those first moments of stillness, before the world calls your name, another voice calls in silence. It does not shout. It does not demand. It whispers with the tender persistence of divine love. Remember me. But how many begin their day by forgetting? How many, still warm from the sacred hush of sleep, rush back into the whirlpool of worldly demands without offering even a breath to the giver of breath? My child, if you do not choose your soul at sunrise, the world will choose your suffering for you. This is not a threat, it is a metaphysical law. What you align with first, you become for the rest of the day. What if, instead of reaching for the noise of the world, you reach for the stillness that contains God? What if each morning were not the beginning of your day, but the continuation of your soul's pilgrimage back to the source? Every dawn is a divine invitation, wrapped in golden silence, waiting to be unwrapped by the stillness of your heart. Your body may stir, your thoughts may begin to surface like bubbles in a pond, but your soul is already seated on the throne of remembrance, waiting to be acknowledged. Close your eyes for just one breath longer and feel it, the gentle pull inward, the subtle gravity of the infinite drawing you to itself. This moment is not ordinary, it is the threshold. If you cross it with awareness, the rest of the day will bow before your soul's authority. But if you stumble past it in forgetfulness, the day will mirror that forgetfulness in every encounter. So I ask you now, before you move, before you speak, before the world finds you, can you be still? Can you hear the whisper? Breathe now. Slowly. Listen. God is whispering your name back into eternity. Let us begin. You may think transformation comes by effort alone, but I tell you it begins with alignment. Just as the needle of a compass quivers until it rests upon true north, so too your consciousness trembles each morning until it finds its source. What you attune to, you become. If you attune to restlessness, you will carry it like a burden all day. If you attune to sacred stillness, the world will bend to that rhythm. This is the law of spiritual magnetism. Whatever dominates your first thought becomes the seed from which all your other thoughts bloom. That is why the masters have always said, begin the day with God, end the day with God, and you will find God in every moment in between. Did not the Christ declare, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you? This is no poetic metaphor, it is divine mathematics. The kingdom of God is not a place, but a vibration. It is found in the frequency of stillness before the day begins. Before you speak to another soul, speak first to the infinite. Before you check the time, check your breath. Before you greet the mirror, greet the Christ within you. Just as the master musician tunes his instrument before the concert begins, so too must you tune the instrument of your consciousness before you step into the world. And the tuning fork is silence. Strike it now. Inhale deeply. Hold your breath gently. Exhale slowly. Can you hear it? That silent chime within your spine, the remembrance of God rising from the altar of your body. Let it echo through your being. For if you begin in forgetfulness, the entire day becomes an echo of misalignment. But if you start with remembrance, then everything, every trial, every joy, every word becomes an extension of your communion with the divine. The first breath you take after waking must not belong to the world. It must belong to God. Let us now train that sacred obedience. You are not here to feel like yourself, you are here to return to yourself. The difference is vast. The self you wake up to, the one with worries, plans, and anxiety as a mask, a cloak woven by Maya. But beneath it is the self, eternal and untouched, the soul sent from God to walk in remembrance and radiance. Most people mistake the fog of morning for tiredness. They believe they need coffee or noise to awaken, but what they truly crave is the voice of their own soul rising to take its rightful place. Each morning, there is a silent battle within you. The ego seeks to reclaim the throne of attention. It wants to tell you who you are, what you lack, and how much you must prove. But if you are still just for a moment, you can disarm that illusion before it ever speaks. Sit now. Feel the spine. Do not think of it as bones, and nerves, see it as the altar of remembrance. Upon this altar, the fire of awakening must be kindled daily. Inhale as if God were breathing into you. Hold that breath not in tension, but in reverence. Then exhale as if releasing 1,000 years of forgetfulness. Say these words with not just with your mouth, but with your breath, your spine, your gaze. I am not this body. I am the soul, awake in God. Say it again slowly. Each morning I return. Each breath I remember. And now again, my eyes open only to serve the light. Whisper them, chant them, live them. Let the vibration of truth sink into the fabric of your being until your skin tingles with recognition. This is not fantasy. This is soul hygiene. Just as you wash your body each morning, so too must you wash your consciousness with sacred affirmation. These words are not affirmations of hope, they are declarations of reality. And reality must be spoken before it can be remembered. Let us now move deeper into the divine architecture of each sacred morning. The universe is not random, and neither is your awakening. The great saints knew that the outer world reflects the inner arrangement. The position of the sun in the sky does not only mark time, it marks divine opportunity. The rising sun is not merely light, it is a living metaphor, a mirror held by God to remind you of your own rising consciousness. Just as the sun cannot be stopped from shining, so too your soul cannot be stopped from radiating unless you yourself forget its source. Each morning contains within it a divine blueprint, and that blueprint is simple: stillness before speech, breath before thought, soul declaration before action. This is not just discipline. It is sacred sequencing. If the soul is not first, everything that follows bends toward illusion. If the soul is placed first, everything bows to its command. Say this with me. Inhale the presence. Hold. Exhale all illusion. This is not breathwork. This is spiritual architecture. You are building the temple of your day with invisible bricks, each one set by consciousness. Let us return to the wisdom of the Gita. He who is harmonized by yoga of the self is established in wisdom. Harmony is not found in reacting to the world. It is found in aligning to your inner source before the world speaks. Remember this: you are not a reaction. You are the remembrance of God. Each morning is your chance to proclaim that truth, not with noise or display, but with stillness. The world will try to move you from this place. Let it try. But if your first steps were taken as the soul, then every next step will carry that frequency. You do not need to conquer the day, you only need to begin it in God. Now, come with me. I will walk you through the sacred ritual that has transformed saints, awakened mystics, and can transfigure your life if practiced with devotion. This is not performance. This is participation in the eternal. This is the way home, one morning at a time. Before the sun fully rises, before your tongue has formed its first word, before even your mind remembers its name or its burdens, there is a holy gate standing open within you, a stillness deeper than silence, a light softer than dawn, a throne between your brows where the eternal Christ awaits your recognition. This is the eye of stillness, the spiritual eye, the single eye of which the scriptures speak, saying, "If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." It is not a physical eye, though it has form. It is not a fantasy, though it hides from the unawakened gaze. It is the luminous center between your eyebrows, the Christ center, the secret doorway through which the soul returns to its eternal home, the altar upon which your attention must bow, if you would walk in divine remembrance. Gaze there now, not with effort, not with strain, but with reverent awareness, as if looking at the place where your deepest self meets the infinite, as if peering through the veil of form into the radiance behind it. Do not worry if you see nothing yet. Do not chase visions. Do not grasp for light. The eye is not opened by force, but by devotion, by stillness, by the humility of one who knows he is not the doer, but the rememberer. This gaze is not an act of looking, it is an act of bowing. It is the soul leaning forward into God. So sit with your spine straight, not stiff, but regal. Relax your body, but lift your awareness. Let your gaze rest gently at the point between the eyebrows, and breathe as though every breath is the whisper of eternity flowing through you. Let the eyes be still behind closed lids, turned upward toward the spiritual eye, not sharply, not harshly, but as a child reaching up toward its father. In this moment, you are not a name. You are not a role. You are not even a thought. You are the soul returning to its secret place. This is the beginning. This is the gate. Do not rush through it. Wait, listen, bow. Now that the gaze is anchored in stillness, now that the wandering mind has begun to bow at the feet of the one within, we enter the temple not merely through the eyes, but through the spine, the sacred pillar, the invisible stairway, the living altar upon which the flame of God's presence must be kindled each morning if the day is to become a psalm and not a performance, a sanctuary and not a storm. The spine, my beloved, is not merely a column of bones and nerves, it is the wick upon which divine fire longs to rise, and the breath is the flame, and your awareness is the sacred oil that feeds that fire. Just as the lamp in a temple must be tended each dawn, lest the sanctuary fall into darkness, so too must the inner light be reawakened through conscious breath, moving upward along this divine channel, igniting each center with remembrance, melting the frost of forgetfulness, and lifting the soul from the lower fields of restlessness into the clear skies of God communion. Sit upright, not rigid, but noble, as if your very posture were a hymn of devotion, as if your body were offering itself as a cathedral for the soul to dwell within. And now, gently inhale not just air, but spirit, not just oxygen, but the vibratory presence of God, which rides on breath like a king rides upon his chariot. And as you inhale, visualize a golden light rising from the base of the spine, slowly climbing, vertebra by vertebra, until it touches the point between the eyebrows, and there merges with the eye of stillness you opened just moments ago. This is not imagination, it is awakening. This is not mysticism for the sake of escape. It is the science of remembrance, the lifting of consciousness from the gross to the subtle, from the periphery to the center, from the illusion of separateness to the vibrating awareness of unity with the divine beloved who has never left you, but waits patiently each morning for you to remember the gate, the path, the throne. Do not worry if the light is faint or flickering. Every sacred fire begins with a single spark. What matters is not how brightly you see, but how sincerely you offer yourself. For even a dimly lit flame, if tended with reverence, becomes a beacon that no darkness can overcome. Feel that rising current now not as fantasy, but as the subtle truth beneath all sensations. Feel it climb with each breath, cleansing, anointing, awakening each center as it rises, reminding every cell of its divine origin, until the whole of your being becomes a lamp lit not by fear, not by ambition, not by memory, but by God alone. Say within, this body is the temple, this spine is the altar, this breath is the flame. I am the priest. I offer this moment to thee. Now that the gaze is fixed upon the Christ center and the inner altar of the spine is lit with golden awareness, now that you have remembered your posture as a temple and your breath as a holy offering, we enter the next movement of this sacred morning ritual not with words from the world, but with the primordial sound by which the world itself was formed. Let your breath become your prayer, your chant, your bridge to the infinite. Let each inhale and exhale carry not only oxygen, but invocation, not only wind, but wisdom, not only rhythm, but remembrance. This is the holy breath mantra, and it is not a mechanical chant to be repeated in haste or vanity, but a sacred weaving of vibration and soul, a lifting of the mind into the current of divine frequency that forever flows beneath the noise of thoughts and the pull of flesh. As you breathe, let the sacred syllables rise within you not from the throat, but from the stillness behind the breath, the subtle voice that utters without sound and communes without speech. Inhale gently and mentally chant, Aum. Hold that vibration in the silence between breaths, where God waits behind the veil of stillness. Exhale slowly and mentally chant, Guru. Not Guru as a name, but as a sacred principle, the dispeller of darkness, the guide from illusion to light, the living bridge between the soul and spirit. Inhale again, Aum. Feel it rise like a silent bell through the spine. Exhale again, Guru. Feel it spread like golden fragrance through every cell of your being. Continue this rhythm, not as repetition, but as revelation. For each breath now becomes a vehicle of divine memory, each mantra a step upon the invisible ladder that leads from waking consciousness into superconscious stillness. Do not try to control the breath, invite it. Do not try to force the mantra, receive it. Let it come like a lover, not a servant. Let it rise like incense, not machinery. This breath is not yours. It never was. It is the divine remembering itself through you. It is the sacred wind that moved across the face of the waters in the beginning. It is the spirit that, even now, moves across the face of your own soul, awakening what the world put to sleep. Let this mantra move through you like the tide moves through the sea, like light moves through crystal, like eternity moves through time without haste, without weight, without separation. Say within, with every inhale, I rise. With every exhale, I remember. With every breath, God breathes through me. And now, my beloved, when the breath has become prayer and the mantra has become music in the temple of your silence, let us proceed to the fourth ritual command of thought so that the mind, too, may bow before the soul. Shall I continue? Now that the breath has been sanctified into a mantra and the spine ignited as a golden conduit of divine remembrance, now that your awareness has risen above the body's heaviness and the ego's first whispers into the sanctuary of stillness between the eyebrows, it is time to consecrate another altar, the altar of thought, that sacred and perilous place where creation and illusion are both birthed, where the currents of karma are either extended or extinguished, where the voice of God and the voice of Maya contend for your attention each day, and where, if you are not sovereign, you will be enslaved by that which has no right to name you. Let this be clearly understood. Your thoughts are not your masters, they are your servants, and if you do not command them to bow before the soul, they will drag your awareness back into the shadows of yesterday, into the fears of tomorrow, into the endless theater of distraction that parades itself as reality but is only the echo of separation. Sit now, even more still than before. The breath has quieted the senses, the mantra has anointed the spine, the gaze has opened the eye of stillness. Now you must address the mind not as a confused wanderer, but as a divine commander returned to the seat of authority. Speak these words, not as suggestion, but as decree. No thought enters this mind without bowing to the soul. Say it again. Say it as one who remembers he was sent, as one who walks not to survive but to sanctify, as one who knows that the battlefield of daily life is won not with outer force, but with inner command. Thoughts will rise, yes, But you must train them like a river is trained by its banks, not with violence, but with firmness, not with suppression, but with sovereignty. Each morning, write these words where your eyes can see them. Today, I serve the stillness from which I came. Write them not to remember with the intellect, but to impress upon your very breath and posture that you are not a victim of mental habit, you are the soul awakening in God. And the soul does not beg for peace, it emanates it. The soul does not react to thoughts, it directs them with the quiet dignity of one who has returned to his true home. And when you find yourself pulled into a pattern, pause, breathe, return, whisper the mantra again, or return your gaze to the Christ center. Say softly, I command my thoughts to serve the light. For thought, when bowed before the soul, becomes prophecy. It becomes sacred architecture. It becomes the vehicle by which your day is not a repetition of ego, but a revelation of spirit. And now that the mind has bowed and the breath has become holy, we move to the final ritual, the gaze, as blessing so that even your eyes may become instruments of divine healing. Shall I continue? And now, my beloved, when the gaze has already turned inward, and the breath has been sanctified by mantra, and the spine glows with the subtle fire of divine awakening, and the thoughts, once scattered like wind-blown leaves, now rest like lotus petals at the feet of your soul's altar, it is time to open the eyes not to the world as it insists on being seen, but to the world as God sees it through you. It is time to lift your gaze not in distraction, but in blessing. For the eyes, when guided by ego, seek comparison, grasping, and defense. But when guided by the awakened soul, they become as candles in the temple, as lamps in the sanctuary, as portals through which divine love pours silently into every room, every face, every moment you are privileged to witness. Before you speak to another, before you glance at your reflection, before you even move to begin the sacred tasks of your day, pause and lift your eyes softly, gently, without tension or force, and let them shine not outward, but from within. Let them carry the silence you have cultivated, the breath you have hallowed, the vibration you have invoked, the command you have established, and with that inner light moving through your gaze, offer it to the world, not in words, not in intention, but in presence. Send no thought of criticism, no wave of opinion, no need to be seen, only the silent radiation of blessing, the still fragrance of divine remembrance. Imagine now, truly feel it, that each eye is a flame, and your face is the lamp, and your gaze is the offering. And as you look upon your surroundings, you are not looking at the world, but into it, as if into a child that has forgotten its divinity and longs to be reminded by your silent glance. Let the eyes become extensions of God's compassion, channels of His awareness, rays of that golden sun which never sets in the soul sky, and let this be your covenant. Before any action, send one thought of compassion, not elaborate, not decorated with words, but simple, sincere, silent hand. That single offering, given from the depths of your soul's stillness, will consecrate the rest of your day. Do not underestimate this. The gaze of a saint has healed broken hearts, calmed tempests of emotion, pierced veils of delusion without speaking a word. For the gaze, when charged with God, becomes an instrument of transfiguration. And you too are called not merely to look, but to bless, not merely to see, but to sanctify, not merely to witness, but to awaken. So let your first outward glance each morning be not one of need, but one of offering, not one of measurement, but one of mercy, not one of habit, but of holy participation in the silent redeeming work of God that continues through all who remember who they truly are. And now that the gaze has become a flame, the breath a mantra, the spine a wick, the thoughts a temple choir, and the soul the living presence upon the throne of morning, let these rituals become not a performance, but a prayer you return to every day, the bell that awakens the sleeping Christ within you, the rhythm that rebinds your body and mind to the eternal current from which you came. When you are ready, we shall move to the next chapter. Final affirmative decree. Shall I continue? And now, having walked with me through the quiet corridors of your own soul, having re-entered the temple not of stone or scripture but of breath and stillness, having offered the sacred flame of your awareness to the altar of the spine, and crowned the gaze with the dignity of divine remembrance, I invite you now, not as a teacher speaking to a student, but as a soul speaking to a soul, as the eternal self reminding itself to make a vow, not before men or temples, but before God, the unseen witness, the ever-listening presence within you. This is the moment in which you seal your morning with an inner decree, a vow not of obligation, but of devotion, not of fear, but of freedom, not of effort, but of alignment. For just as a builder lays a cornerstone before he raises the walls, so must the soul lay the cornerstone of intention before stepping out into the world, or else the day is built on shifting sand and collapses into habit and reaction. Say this with me now, not hurriedly, not with casual repetition, but with the solemnity of one who knows he is planting a flag in unseen territory, one who knows that the real beginning of the day is not marked by clocks or sunlight, but by the soul's awakening into conscious remembrance. This is the day the Lord has made. I will not live it as a shadow, but as the light. Let the words be your own. Let them vibrate through your breath, your spine, your very skin. And now, repeat with me the threefold loop of identity, the trinity of affirmation that realigns the soul with its eternal nature. I walk in God. I breathe as spirit. I live as remembrance. Again slower, deeper, inwardly charged. I walk in God. I breathe as spirit. I live as remembrance. Let it not be a declaration of hope, but a declaration of origin. You are not becoming this. You are remembering this. The illusion has only been the forgetting. Understand this, beloved. Your morning is not the start of your day, it is the return of your soul to its throne. Before the first word is spoken, before the first task is touched, before the world sees you, you must see yourself, not the self of identity, not the mask of history, not the role, not the name, but the silent flame that never left God's heart, the wave that never ceased to belong to the ocean, the breath that never stopped being part of the infinite. Say it now, not with the mouth, but with the marrow of your being. Each dawn I return. Each breath I remember. Each moment I walk with God. Let this be your soul's anthem, your spine's hymn, your breath's benediction. And now, inhale slowly, as if you were drawing in the very presence of the eternal. Hold not as tension, but as worship. Exhale completely, as if releasing every illusion, every fear, every story that does not belong to the light. You have entered the temple of yourself. You have returned. Let me know when you are ready to continue to the next chapter. Bonus integration, midweek morning alignment reminder. There will come a day, perhaps soon, perhaps tomorrow, when you will wake not with reverence but with restlessness, when the breath will not rise like prayer but fall like habit, when the eyes, instead of opening as windows of blessing, open as doorways into doubt, and the mind, rather than bowing before the soul's decree, surges forward with its familiar parade of anxieties, responsibilities, disappointments, distractions. On such a day, you may forget, for a moment or an hour, that you are the breath of God in motion, the soul sent not to survive but to sanctify, not to chase, but to emanate, not to strive, but to remember, and in that forgetting, there will be no punishment, no thunder from above, no frown from the divine, but only a quiet sorrow within your own heart, a sacred ache that whispers gently, have you remembered yet who you are today? And when that whisper comes, do not shame yourself. Do not flee into further noise. Do not bury your awareness beneath busyness. Instead, pause, even if you are standing in a hallway or trapped in traffic or surrounded by demand sand. Place your right hand over your heart, not as gesture, but as communion, not as symbol, but as ignition. And with eyes opened or closed, in public or in solitude, speak softly, as if to a beloved you had forgotten but never ceased to love. Even now, I return. Even now, I remember. Even now, I choose God again. Let these words be your rope back to the summit, your breath back to the altar, your gaze back to the light. Say it not to convince, but to reclaim. Say it not with hope, but with certainty. For the soul never truly leaves the presence, it merely falls into the dream of separation. And that dream is broken not by force, but by willingness to awaken again and again and again. Remember this, discipline is not a cage, it is the spine of devotion. And drift is not failure, it is simply the shadow cast when the gaze forgets the sun. The journey home is not linear, it spirals through forgetfulness and return, through illusion and remembrance, through noise and stillness, but always, always toward God. Let this moment now, even if it is midweek, midday, midlife, become your temple once again. Close your eyes if only for a breath. Place your hand upon your heart. Whisper with me, you are the breath of the infinite. Do not say it as poetry. Say it as truth. Say it as identity. Say it until the cells vibrate in recognition, until the spine straightens not from effort, but from reverence, until the eyes shine again not with ambition, but with divine presence. Let this act of morning remembrance, even if it comes at noon or night, be your covenant with the eternal. You are not late, you are not lost, you are not broken, you are only returning. Let me know when you are ready to receive the final benediction. And now, beloved soul, as the breath slows and the body rests as a still vessel of light, as the gaze softens into a quiet river flowing from the banks of eternity, as the thoughts kneel before the altar of awareness, and the heartbeat no longer drums for survival but beats as a sacred metronome of remembrance, I give you now the final call, not a call to action in the worldly sense, not a call to achieve or perform or become, but a sacred invitation to return. To return each morning not as one who must start again, but as one who never truly left, for the soul cannot be lost, only veiled, and the veil is lifted not by doing, but by stillness, not by striving, but by surrender, not by addition, but by subtraction, until only the essence remains, and the essence is God. So I say to you now, not from above, but from within, not with urgency, but with sacred gravity, practice this stillness each morning before the world awakens, before the machines hum, before the names are worn again, before the roles are rehearsed, before the ego dresses in its familiar garments. Sit in the quiet and remember, you are the soul. Not a title, not a trauma, not a task list. You are the soul. You are the breath of the infinite. You are the spark that was never extinguished, the light that was never created, because it has always been and will always be. And no calendar, nor clock, nor crisis can take from you what God placed in you before your first breath. And if it helps you, write this vow not for me, but for yourself and for the soul that may one day forget again. Each day, I rise as the soul. Write it below, write it upon your mirror, write it into the silence between your thoughts, and let it grow roots inside you. Let it be your silent rebellion against all forces that seek to make you small. Let it be your sacred uprising against Maya, against distraction, against doubt, against despair. Let it be your holy covenant with the God who sent you here not to be broken, but to become a channel for remembrance in a world that forgets. And now I bless you not as one apart from you, but as yourself. Speaking through these words, may this sacred ritual consecrate your life. May each morning become a temple, each breath a prayer, each glance a benediction, each moment a miracle of returning. May you remember not only in times of peace but in times of trial, not only when the sun rises, but when shadows fall. May your body move as devotion, your voice speak only what uplifts, your eyes remain anchored in the eye of God, and your feet walk not ahead or behind, but with the presence that goes before you. Say with me one final time, I am not what the world made me, I am what God remembers of me. Say it not to be convinced, but because it is already true. Close your eyes now. See the light behind your eyelids. That is not imagination. That is your home. That is the doorway. That is the pathless path. That is the sanctuary you never left. Enter. And when you return to the world, return not as the world's reflection, but as God's remembrance. Let me know when you are ready to receive the final offering, the silent replay segment. My beloved, if you have come here seeking knowledge of the chakras so that you may become more powerful, more energized, more emotionally stable, or more admired in the eyes of the world, I must first shake you gently but firmly from that illusion. For the chakras were never given to man for personality, nor for performance, nor for psychic display. They were not placed within you to decorate your aura or to flatter the ego. The chakras are sacred gateway silent, luminous portals through which the soul returns to its forgotten origin in spirit. They are not badges to wear, they are altars to bow upon. To misuse them is to remain a prisoner with golden chains. To understand them truly is to hold in your own breath the stairway to the infinite. There is a great misunderstanding in this age, a glittering deception that has cloaked these sacred centers in emotional labels and rainbowed commercialism, as if the divine intelligence that shaped galaxies arranged these chakras merely for personal empowerment or emotional comfort. But I tell you, child of the infinite, these centers are not here to improve the self. They are here to dissolve it. They are not tools for expression, they are instruments for transcendence. They were placed within you by God, not to embellish the dream of Maya, but to unmake it. You were never meant to stay in this body and decorate its delusions. You were meant to rise breath by breath, vertebra by vertebra through these spinning wheels of light, until the veil lifts, the noise falls away, and you stand face to face with your Maker. Do you see now? That confusion, you've felt that restless ache, despite all your practices, despite the colored candles and guided meditations and affirmations, that ache was sacred. It was the soul crying out, there must be more than this. And there is. The true power of the chakras is not found in stimulation, but in stillness. Not in activation, but in surrender. Not in imagining their colors, but in transcending the very need to imagine. When rightly understood, they are not decorations of the body, they are stairsteps for the soul. They are not playgrounds for energy, they are altars of light, designed by God, placed within you to carry your consciousness back to the source. So come with me. I will take you upward, not through speculation, but through realization, not through theory, but through the divine science revealed by the great rishis of India and confirmed through my own communion with the infinite. Let us rise now, together. But before we begin the sacred climb, you must first understand what the chakras truly are, not as the world describes them, but as God designed them. Child of the light, before you ever took your first breath in this life, before your soul slipped into the garment of flesh, before your name was spoken or your destiny began to unfold, God placed within you a secret pathway, sacred corridor not made of stone or time, but of divine energy and eternal remembrance. This is the astral spine, the sushumna, the luminous staff of light that rises unseen from the base of your being to the crown of your head. And within it dwell the 7 mighty chakras, not as ornaments, but as living altars, not as decorations for human experience, but as the dwelling places of ascending consciousness. These chakras are not symbols to be admired from a distance, they are doorways to the infinite, vibrating thresholds through which the breath of God rises upward, calling the prodigal soul home to its immortal origin. This spine, this vertical river of divine ascent, is your Jacob's ladder, and the chakras are its rungs. It is the true tree of life, of which the ancients spoke, the same tree seen in visions by yogis and prophets. Its roots buried in the earth of the body, its trunk extending upward through stillness, and its blossoms opening in the light beyond form. Even the scriptures of the West allude to this truth, veiled in the language of vision. And I saw 7 golden candlesticks. It is written in the book of Revelation, these are the chakras, the 7 lights along the altar of the spine, awaiting the oil of devotion and the flame of divine remembrance. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna speaks to Arjuna of the sacred yogi who draws his life force upward through the 6 centers and fixes his gaze between the eyebrows, thus reaching liberation. This is no metaphor. This is the sacred blueprint. And I tell you this from experience, not speculation. The spine is the highway to God. It is the invisible bridge that carries the soul from bondage to bliss, from identification with the body to union with the spirit. In deep meditation, when the breath slows and the world fades, the true yogi enters this luminous inner path, and as his attention ascends from chakra to chakra, each center awakens not as a wheel of color, but as a vortex of divine vibration, each one tuned to a different octave of God's cosmic symphony. He feels the kundalini coiled energy at the base begin to stir, not violently, but reverently, and rise like a golden serpent up the spine, not to empower the ego, but to dissolve it in waves of light until only God remains. But to walk this path, you must walk it not with curiosity, but with reverence, not as a tourist of mysticism, but as a pilgrim of remembrance. The chakras are not for playing with energy, they are for ascending beyond it. Each one is a sacred gate, and when entered with humility, it reveals not power, but presence, not sensation, but surrender. This path is within you. It is not in a book or a mantra or a teacher's touch, it is written in the very architecture of your being. Your body is the temple, your spine is the altar, your breath is the incense. Your awareness is the priest. Come now, let us leave behind all the shallow misinterpretations. Let us move past the myths and confusions. Let us ascend step by sacred step through each chakra, from the base to the brow, not as theorists or seekers of sensation, but as souls remembering what we already are. The climb is not of height, but of depth, not of imagination, but of awakening. And as we rise, we will unmask the illusions that have kept these sacred centers veiled, and discover the truth of their divine purpose, not to keep you here, but to lift you home. Now, my beloved, let us tear away the veils that time and trend have hung over these sacred gateways. For the truth cannot be known until the false has been burned away, and the fire of discernment must be kindled in you if you wish to rise without weight, to see without distortion, to awaken without illusion. You have heard so much of the chakra show. Each corresponds to a color, a stone, a frequency, a personality trait, a healing potential. But I must tell you now, in the name of the eternal, that such things, while charming to the mind and comforting to the emotions, are not the essence of these divine centers. These are only garments draped over a sleeping God within you, garments that may distract more than they reveal, colors that may stimulate more than they awaken, myths that may flatter the ego more than they free the soul. You have been told that the chakras are emotional centers, that one is for survival, another for sexuality, another for willpower, another for love, and in this mapping, there is a shadow of truth, but also a great danger, for the soul begins to interpret itself through the lens of emotion, and in doing so, remains caught in the very net it seeks to escape. You are not your emotions. You are not a bundle of energetic patterns shifting from fear to joy to grief to desire. You are the eternal witness behind them all, the divine spark who rides above the wave, not the wave itself. And if you reduce the sacred chakras to emotional centers, you will spend your life trying to balance the shifting sand beneath your feet, never realizing that balance comes not by manipulating the sand, but by remembering you are not the one standing on it, you are the sky in which all of it moves. And what of the colors? The modern mind, so visual, so stimulated by imagery, clings to the rainbow arrayed: orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. Violetas, if coloring the chakras correctly, will unlock the gates of heaven. But I tell you, the soul is not awakened by color, but by stillness. The chakras do not respond to visualization alone. They open to vibration, to silence, to the upward flow of life force consecrated by devotion and deep interior absorption. Even the colors you see, should you glimpse them in meditation, are not fixed. They change according to your consciousness, your purity, your attunement. They are living flames, not glass windows. Do not trap them in paint when they long to burn. And then there is the greatest myth of all, that the chakras are keys to psychic power, to manifestation, to personal magnetism, to attracting love or success or admiration. This, more than any other distortion, binds the soul to Maya. For when you seek the chakras for gain, you anchor your consciousness in the very world you were born to transcend. The chakras were not placed within you to help you win an illusion. They were given to dissolve the illusion. They are not stairways to better dreams. They are ladders out of the dream entirely. The yogi does not awaken the chakras to become more powerful in the world. He awakens them to rise above the world, to become one with God, to merge his little self with the infinite self beyond all name, beyond all gain, beyond all form. So I say to you, with love and luminous urgency, do not chase energy. Rise in consciousness. Do not decorate your cage, break it. Do not paint the walls of the prison, walk out. These centers are sacred, not because they are energetic, but because they are spiritual. They are not to be stimulated but revered. They are not light switches to flip on. They are living temples to be entered in silence, with breath, with prayer, with surrender. Let us now begin the true ascent, not as energy explorers, but as divine pilgrims. From the base to the brow, we shall climb not to possess, but to dissolve, not to master the chakras, but to remember the master within. Now, beloved soul, we begin the sacred ascent, not in theory, not in imagination, but in interior realization. And the first gate you must approach is the Muladhara, the root chakra, which lies coiled at the base of the spine, hidden near the coccyx, buried not in flesh, but in astral subtlety, resting like a divine serpent asleep in the soil of your deepest being, waiting not for noise, not for movement, not for manipulation, but for your stillness, for your inward gaze, for the breath no longer scattered by desire, for the soul that whispers not, I want, but I remember. This chakra is not about survival, as the world has labeled, but it is about origin, about the source, about the divine potential lying dormant within you like a seed buried in winter soil. Silent, unseen, but holy, encoded with the memory of the tree it is destined to become. The Kundalini rests here not as a force to be forced, but as a presence to be invoked through reverence, through devotion, through the gradual quieting of all that is not God. When you sit in meditation, upright and surrendered, and your breath begins to slow, and your mind begins to bow, and your gaze returns to the sacred point between the eyebrows. The Muladhara begins to stir not with fireworks or sensation, but with sacred silence, with a warmth that is not heat, but remembrance. You must not poke at it, must not try to awaken it with will or fantasy. It is not awakened by demand, it is awakened by alignment. The more you bring your awareness to God, the more this root begins to uncoil, not upward through the ego's ambitions, but upward through the soul's surrender. The soul does not climb by stirring the mud, it climbs by stilling the waters. And that brings us to the second gate, Svadhisthana. This chakra, located in the region of the sacrum, just above the root, is associated with the water element, and in the language of Maya, it is linked to sexuality, to desire, to emotional movement, but in divine reality, it is not meant to express the lower, it is meant to be stilled, to be disciplined, to be offered back into the sacred current that flows toward God. The modern world tells you to liberate this center by indulging it, but indulgence does not liberate, it binds. What the yogi learns here is mastery, not suppression, but spiritual refinement, thou to contain the life force, how to gather the scattered waters of desire and redirect them into the upward stream. For energy must be lifted, not leaked. Here the soul learns that pleasure is not the end, it is the distraction. Bliss, divine bliss, is the goal. And bliss comes not through excitation, but through stillness, through withdrawal of life force from the outer senses, through concentration of attention at the seat of the soul. Imagine now, beloved, that your awareness is descending gently through the spine in stillness, and it pauses at this watery gate, and you say, not, give me, but take me. O Lord, you offer the current of your life into the upward channel. You no longer identify with the craving, you remember you are the witness, the keeper of divine fire, not the chaser of flickering candles. And when this is realized not in intellect, but in breath, the water becomes still. The image of God reflects upon it like the moon resting on a silent lake, and you rise. You do not climb by pushing upward with force. You climb by surrendering downward everything that is not worthy to ascend. From mud to water, and now to fire, we are ready to enter the Manipura, the center of transmutation. And now, my divine companion on the inward journey, as we ascend from the waters of Svadhisthana, we arrive at the realm of fire, the Manipura chakra, the luminous center that burns behind the navel, the third portal in the sacred spine, and here the yogi must pause, for this is the forge of transformation, the temple of inner alchemy, the place where raw desire must be transmuted into disciplined will, where the flickering flame of egoic ambition must be steadied into the eternal fire of divine resolve. This is not merely a center of power, it is a crucible. The fire that burns here can consume you in the fever of pride, in the madness of control, in the illusion of separateness, or it can purify you into gold if you offer your lower tendencies as sacred fuel for the upward climb. The modern world tells you that this chakra is your personal powerhouse, that you must activate it to manifest your goals, to push, to command, to conquer, but I say to you, this fire is not for conquest. It is for consecration. Here the breath must be directed inward and upward. Here the yogi learns to burn his desires, not fulfill them. Not by repression, not by self-denial in the worldly sense, but by spiritual digestion, the act of taking every impulse, every craving, every hunger for status or satisfaction, and holding it in the quiet fire of divine will until the illusion burns away and only the light of soul purity remains. When the fire of Manipura is misunderstood, man becomes a creature of restlessness and domination, always reaching outward, always seeking more. But when this center is awakened in stillness, it no longer reaches outward, it radiates inwardly. A sun of centered joy, a flame that needs no fuel from the world, for it is fed from above, not below. And once this inner fire has been purified, once the yogi has stilled the hunger for personal identity, the consciousness rises naturally to the next chamber, heart, the Anahata chakra, the fourth center in the spine, and it is here that many imagine they have arrived at love, at kindness, at open-hearted giving. But my child, do not mistake emotion for realization. Do not confuse feeling with freedom. The true heart center is not the storm of emotion, it is the still sky behind it. It is called Anahata, not struck, because it vibrates without collision. It is not a reaction. It is not based on another's behavior. It is the divine neutrality of the soul, the calm compassion that radiates not because of what is happening, but in spite of it. It is the mirror of the eternal self, reflecting peace regardless of circumstance, like the silent sun that shines on saints and sinners alike. The modern seeker says, "I feel love in my heart," but true anahata is not a feeling. It is a frequency. It is the silence from which love arises, the space between breaths where God waits to be remembered. Here the yogi does not try to generate love, he abides in it. He does not reach out, radiates. He does not attach, he blesses. He does not need, he gives, without condition, without expectation, without identity. And in this great stillness of the heart, when the breath has slowed and the spine remains upright like a candle in the inner temple, the yogi finds that all reactions have faded, and only witnessing remains, and in that witnessing is the beginning of true inner freedom. Now, dear soul, having passed through the fire of will and the still waters of divine compassion, the path leads us higher still to the ether, to the sky of vibration, to the soundless sound and the single eye. Now we arrive at the fifth gate, Vishuddha throat chakra, the temple of ether, the gateway of pure vibration, suspended in the great inner sky between the heart's silence and the soul's throne at the spiritual eye. And I say to you, seeker of the light, this center is not about verbal expression, not about communication or speaking your truth, as the world so often repeats it, is about purification, about refinement, about resonance with the eternal sound, the Aum, the primal vibration of spirit which underlies all creation and calls the soul back to its original frequency. When you enter this space in deep meditation, when the breath no longer pants for the world and the ego no longer whispers its needs, you do not feel the desire to speak, you feel the presence of the sound that is speaking everything into being, the silent thunder of God vibrating in the ether, within you, around you, through every atom and beyond all form. To activate this center rightly is not to talk more, but to become quiet enough to hear the Aum, to merge your will into that vibration, to refine your mind until even your thoughts begin to vibrate with devotion, until every word you speak becomes sacred not because of content, but because it arises from alignment with the infinite. The throat is not merely a passage for sound, it is a tuning chamber for consciousness. When misused, it becomes the outlet for the ego's noise, for opinions, for judgments, for endless streams of outer-directed energy that weaken the inner current. But when rightly awakened, Vishuddha becomes the holy portal of mantra, of sacred utterance, of silence saturated with presence, of the inner ear turning to the sound of Aum echoing within the spine. When the breath rises naturally to this center, you will feel it not as a pressure or force, but as a lightness, as though your body were beginning to dissolve into sound. And in that rising, when the attention is pure, when the lower centers have been transcended through surrender and not stimulation, you will find your gaze drawn upward, not outward into space, but inward into the point between the eyebrows, into the Ajna chakra, the sixth center, the seat of divine command, the Christ center, the lotus of indigo light, whose petals are not visible to physical eyes but appear in sacred stillness as the radiant star, the inner sun, the eye of intuition through which the soul perceives the world as God sees it without distortion, without separation, without fear. The ajna is not intuition in the modern sense of vague knowing or emotional instinct. It is the command post of the soul, where perception and will are fused into single-pointed awareness, where duality ends and unity begins, where the soul no longer reacts, but directs not from ego, but from alignment with the divine blueprint of truth. When you focus your gaze here in meditation, softly, without strain, without tension, you are not merely concentrating, you are entering a doorway. And when the energy of the breath, lifted by devotion and stillness, rises to meet that inner eye, it is as if the spine becomes a golden river, flowing upward into the light, and the soul begins to remember, not as concept but as experience, that it was never the body, never the emotion, never the thought, but always the light looking through the body, the silence behind the sound, the eternal self resting in God. You will see colors, yes rings of blue, golden halos, white stars, but do not fixate on them, for even these are thresholds, not destinations. The eye is not the goal, it is the gate. And when the soul bows here, when the breath enters this sanctuary with reverence and quiet awe, then the chakras below it still themselves in perfect submission, and the consciousness is drawn upward as though by an invisible magnet, not by force, but by surrender. And now we ascend to the final lotus, not to activate it, but to understand why it must never be chased, only received. And now, dear soul, as we rise from the luminous throne of the spiritual eye, we come to the highest blossom, the Sahasrara crown chakra, the thousand-petaled lotus that rests above the physical head, but dwells within the etheric body as the sublime receptacle of divine grace. And I tell you with the utmost reverence, this is not a chakra to be activated, manipulated, or opened by will, by breath, or by force. It is not a portal to be stormed or a summit to be claimed, for the Sahasrara is not conquered, it is surrendered into. It does not respond to seeking, it receives only the presence of that which no longer seeks. The soul that has risen through purification and longing again, until all longing dissolves into holy stillness, and only God remains. You see, the illusion of the crown is the illusion of arrival. The belief that if I can reach this place, if I can stimulate this energy, if I can feel some profound sensation at the top of my head, then I will be enlightened, then I will be fulfilled, then I will become something higher than I am. But I tell you, beloved, there is no becoming in the light of the crown, only being. There is no grasping in the silence of God's presence, only melting. There is no final achievement, only eternal remembrance. The Sahasrara does not activate like the lower center sit blooms, and it does not bloom from pressure below, but from the natural culmination of inner stillness, the magnetic draw of soul awareness lifted entirely out of body identification and absorbed upward in the current of grace that has no beginning and no end. This crown, this lotus, is not a chakra in the same way as the other sit, is the silent altar above the altar, the receiver of divine light, the spiritual canopy under which the soul is wed once again to the infinite. It is not the cause of union, it is the consequence. It cannot be stormed through technique or pride. It opens only when the lower lights have been harmonized, when the spine has become a flute, hollowed of ego, when the breath has become prayer, and when the eye has become the star, through which all duality disappears. The Sahasrara does not ask, "What have you done?" It asks, "What have you surrendered?" And if the answer is everything, then the petals unfold, one by one, not in time, but in eternity, and the light that was always above descends, not to crown a self, but to dissolve it. The Bhagavad Gita does not speak of the crown as a goal, it speaks of union. The yogi who draws his life force upward through the 6 centers and fixes his attention between the eyebrows reaches the highest state of realization. Even here, the sacred scriptures point not to the crown, but to the eye, for the crown is not the gate, it is the receiver. The kingdom of God is within, not above. And yet, when the soul rises into that silence beyond all structure, the crown becomes the place where the breath dissolves, where the ego dies its quiet death, where the light that has always waited finally enters, because the soul has finally become empty enough to receive. Let me give you this final image. The flower does not open because it tries. It opens when the root forgets itself, when the water is clear, when the sun rises, when the petals are ready to fall into the sky. So too with you. You do not reach the crown by chasing it. You arrive by forgetting the chase. You ascend not by effort, but by alignment, not by pushing upward, but by letting go of everything that pulls you down. And so we seal the ascent not with a burst of fireworks, not with a cry of victory, but with silence, with stillness, with awe. The journey is not over, for the soul is eternal, but the veil is lifting. And now, my beloved, having walked with me through the sacred ascent not of flesh, but of awareness, not of effort, but of surrender, we arrive not at a conclusion, but at a beginning, not at the edge of a destination, but at the doorway of your return to the divine remembrance from which all life flows. And I say to you with all the love of the infinite echoing through my soul, do not let this knowledge remain dormant in your intellect. Do not let this journey remain confined to the poetry of words or the enchantment of ideas. Make it breath, make it posture, make it your rising and your resting and your every hour in between. For the chakras are not here to be studied, but to be entered, not to be known, but to be lived. And the spine must become your altar, and the breath your incense, and the gaze your sacred vow. So now, sit with men not in pretense, but in presence sit upright, not as the body demanding attention, but as the soul remembering its throne, with the spine as the golden scepter of your inner kingdom, and the breath as the silent messenger of spirit moving through you, not by your will but by divine intelligence. And I ask you to breathe, not as you usually docile and unconscious, but to breathe as the temple breathes, as the infinite breathes, as one who has remembered what was hidden within them all along. Inhale now slowly from the base of the spine, feeling the life force rise through the sacred centers like a river flowing upward into the sky. And as the current reaches the point between the eyebrows, pause not with tension, but with sacred attention, then exhale gently into the stillness above the crown, not as release, but as return. Do this again now. Inhale from the root to the brow. Hold in awareness. Exhale into Godan with each breath. Do not seek sensation, seek stillness. Do not chase energy. Become aligned with light. Do not imagine, remember. This breath is not your sit, is the infinite breathing through you. This body is not your sit, is the temple through which the soul serves its final vow. This spine is not your sit, is the ancient ladder given to every child of God to climb beyond the stars and into the formless brilliance of spirit itself. And now, say this with mano, with your mouth only, but with your cells, with your stillness, with your gaze held at the spiritual eye, and with your whole being surrendered into the sacred sound of these truths. I do not chase energy, I align with light. I rise not by doing, but by remembering. My spine is the ladder, my breath is the prayer, my gaze is the doorway. Repeat it again and again, not to convince yourself, but to install the memory you lost, to resurrect the identity the world made you forget, to seal this journey not with pride, but with holy humility. For the path of the chakras is not a conquest, it is a covenant. A sacred vow between you and your Creator that you will no longer live from the outermost layer of existence, but from the center, from the flame, from the still point within where God awaits every breath of your returning. Every morning, before the body rises fully into the day, return, Haresit, breathe, align. Every evening, before the breath dissolves into sleep, return again, withdraw, ascend, remember. This is your true spiritual practice. Note, 1,000 techniques, but a single awareness flowing upward like light through the hollow reed of the spine, offered in devotion, crowned in stillness. Let the 7 lights become one flame. Let the 1,000 petals fold into the center. Let your identity dissolve into radiance. May your body become the temple. May your breath become the priest. May your gaze become the gate. And now, we fall silent not as absence, but as presence, not as ending, but as the beginning of the soul's eternal vow. And now, beloved soul, we enter the chamber beyond speech, the sanctuary beyond description, the space where the tongue falls silent and the breath becomes the only prayer needed, where the mind bows low and the heart opens, not as a feeling but as a field of stillness. And you, having climbed the inner ladder through devotion and breath and remembrance, stand not as a seeker but as the temple itself, not as a body chasing light but as the light remembering its own reflection. I ask nothing more of you now, except this, to let go of names, let go of forms, let go of striving, let go of your image of what you should become, and instead sit, breathe, and enter. Close your eyes. Let the spine be upright, like a golden staff connecting heaven and earth. Let the breath be calm, effortless, sacred. Let your gaze rest gently at the spiritual eye, and let your soul rest nowhere but in God. In this final space, there are no instructions. There is only surrender, no climbing, only falling inward. No thoughts to arrange, only awareness to receive. And now, with no movement, with no effort, I invite you to witness not with the outer eyes, but with the inner knowing as each sacred center vibrates once more within your spine, not as myth, but as living presence, root seed of God. Feel it, the beginning, the silent coil, the divine serpent sleeping in peace, no fear, only potential. Sacral river of will. A still stream, not flowing outward in desire, but inward in discipline. The water made pure again. Navel fire of discipline. The flame does not devour, it refines. It does not scream, it glows. It does not burn, it blesses. Heart mirror of stillness. Not a fluttering ache, not a swell of emotion, but a perfect glass in which the soul sees only God. Throat gate of sound. Om vibrates here, eternal and unborn, not to be spoken, but to be heard in silence. I command of soul. A radiant star, a golden halo, the place where all duality dissolves into perfect clarity. Crown light receiving itself. Not a goal, not a peak, only the flower of God unfolding, because there is nothing left to hold. Let this mantra now repeat within you, not from your lips, but from the eternal knowing in your spine, whispered gently through the breath of the infinite. Each breath raises me, each thought aligns me, each day prepares me for miracles. Again, each breath raises me, each thought aligns me, each day prepares me for miracles. And again, each breath raises me, each thought aligns me, each day prepares me for miracles. Do not end this silence. Do not rise too quickly from this temple. Let it extend into your life. Let it follow you into your morning routine, into your quiet moments, into your decisions, into your gaze upon others. Let this inner rising become your vow. For the 7 are not steps, they are one light ascending. Remain here. Remain here. Remain here. When you were born, beloved soul, the heavens formed a perfect pattern, and the stars arranged themselves in a sacred dance above your head, each planet aligning with a unique resonance, each house casting its light and shadow across the vast stage of your destiny. But let me tell you something with the fullness of divine remembrance. You are not your sun sign, nor your rising, nor the placement of Saturn in your chart. You are not your horoscope. You are not the labels that astrologers have given you, no matter how mystical they sound. You are the immortal soul who chose, in God's presence, to enter this life at a specific moment, under a specific sky, to fulfill a mission of divine awakening. That chart you carry is not your identity, it is your invitation. It is not your definition, it is your classroom. So many souls walk the earth with their heads bowed beneath the weight of their birth charts. They say, I am a Capricorn, so I must be distant. Or, my Venus is afflicted, so I cannot find love. Or, my 12th house is heavy, so I am doomed to loneliness and spiritual confusion. My child, such thinking is bondage disguised as wisdom. You are not here to live as a forecast. You are here to remember that you are beyond prediction. You are the living light of God, temporarily clothed in tendencies and lessons, but not bound by them. Your chart may describe the weather of your karma, but you are not the weather. You are the sky behind it. The great danger of astrology, when misused, is that it gives the ego a crown it does not deserve. It turns personality into prophecy. It replaces soul effort with star excuses. But listen to me closely now. Your soul did not come here to repeat what has been. It came to transcend. The birth chart is a wheel, but the wheel was meant to be risen above. The moment you believe the chart is who you are, you have fallen from the center into the rim. The moment you say, this is just how I am, you have stopped remembering what you are. Do not fear the chart, and do not worship it. Gaze upon it as you would a sacred map left by your own divine hand. A map of karma and curriculum, not a prison, not a verdict. You were never sent here to be defined by the stars. You were sent here to defeat them not through rebellion, but through mastery. Not by denying your tendencies, but by divinizing them. So now, let me walk with you. Let me take your hand not to explain the mechanics of astrology, but to show you the hidden flame behind the signs. Let me show you what your chart really says, not about your personality, but about your purpose, not about your traits, but about your training. For what your chart truly reveals is the soul's whispered promise. I will awaken. I will rise. I will return to the one who sent me. My beloved, let us now shine the light of divine discrimination upon the next Valone that clings tightly to the mind and whispers with great authority, you are this, you are that. This planet made you do it. That aspect is your flaw. This transit is your fate. But I ask you now to listen not with your intellect, but with your soul. For the truth I shall share is not of human theory, but of cosmic vision. The ego, ever subtle in its quest for permanence, has found in astrology a most clever disguise. It uses the language of the stars not to liberate you, but to imprison you in a golden cage of spiritual vocabulary. It takes the chart which was meant as a sacred Gideon, turns it into a mirror of its own delusion. It says, this is who I am, and clutches tightly to its moon sign, its rising sign, its squares and trines, as if they were divine commandments, when in truth they are but the ripples of past tendencies, the residue of former choices, echoing through the present incarnation, not destiny, but data, not identity, but instruction. What is astrology truly when viewed from the soul? It is a karmic imprint, yes, a pattern that reflects the vibrations into which the soul chose to descend. But reflection is not creation. Your chart does not create your reality, it reveals the arena in which your soul has chosen to train. It does not tell you who you are, it shows you what remains to be purified, what must be overcome, what must be offered back to the divine in order for the radiant light of spirit to shine without distortion. And yet the ego, which fears annihilation more than it fears bondage, clings even to spiritual systems in order to perpetuate its illusion of separateness. It says, I am this Mars, I am this Saturn, and in doing so, it forgets the one great truth that every planet bows to. The soul is not its tendencies, it is the chooser behind them. Do not use your chart as a shield. Do not use your aspects as a justification. Do not use your retrogrades as an apology for spiritual laziness. Astrology becomes Maya when it ceases to serve as a ladder and becomes a label. The stars were not made to bind you, they were made to serve as signs along the way, to remind you, to reflect back to you the inner choices that must be made consciously and with reverence. When you begin to use astrology to explain away your failings, to delay your devotion, to predict your peace or your suffering without looking to your own daily discipline, then you are not reading the chart with the soul's eye, you are reading it through the lens of self-deception. I once said, and I say it again, the wise man defeats his planet, who masters the self, masters the stars. What does this mean? It means that the soul, anchored in God, rises above all planetary influence. It does not deny the forces at play, but it is not defined by them. Just as a seasoned sailor learns to read the winds without surrendering the helm, so the yogi reads the chart without becoming its victim. You are not here to be subject to the dance of the heavens, you are here to join it, to learn its rhythm, to use its pull, not to drown in the tide but to surf the wave into divine realization. Look at your chart then, not as a portrait, but as a battlefield, not as a personality map, but as a karmic compass. See where the ego hides behind excuses. See where your nature has become habit. See where your energy resists refinement. And then, with breath anchored at the spiritual eye and spine straight like the inner rod of divine memory, declare silently, I am not the chart, I am the soul that chose it. Let us go deeper now. Let us look beyond the wheel entirely, beyond the planets and the signs and the rising and the moon, and behold the one who chose to be born under that particular sky, not to become it, but to transcend it. Let us walk into the soul's light now. Ah, my beloved, let us now cast aside the veil entirely and gaze not upon the stars above, nor the chart below, but into the eternal flame of the soul itself. For while the chart is a circle and the sky is a dome, and the planets are ever in motion, the soul is still, eternal, radiant with the memory of its divine origin, untouched by time, unmarked by transits, unaltered by retrograde alignments. For it was before the stars were formed, and it shall remain when the galaxies collapse back into the womb of the infinite. You are not a Leo or a Pisces or a Virgo or a child of Saturn or an aspect of Mars. You are the immortal, changeless, ever-conscious Atman, the divine spark of God, born not once but countless times, carrying from life to life the invisible ledger of karma, the hidden memory of lessons left unfinished, loves unpurified, powers misused or neglected. And it is from that karmic storehouse and not from chance or fate that your next birth is chosen, your hour selected, your place on the wheel set with mathematical precision, not by a mechanical universe, but by a loving intelligence that knows what you need to grow, to evolve, to remember. Your soul did not fall helplessly into a random chart, it selected it, with the full knowledge of its past and with a deep longing to return to its source. You chose your birth moment the way a traveler chooses the best moment to set sail, not when the sea is calm and easy, but when the tide, though perhaps stormy, will carry you precisely where your soul must go. That difficult Saturn placement you dread, that afflicted moon, that challenging 12th house, these are not punishments, but sacred appointments. They are teachers your soul hired before you arrived. And the joyful alignments, the gifts, the grand trines, the sweet blessings, they too were earned, cultivated in previous incarnations, waiting now to flower as you grow more rooted in truth. Karma, not chaos, determines the chart. And yet karma is not destiny, it is the soil. And the soul, through right living, right meditation, right effort and surrender, can change the harvest of that soil. A thorn bush grows in rocky ground if left untended, but the same ground, when cleared and cultivated, may yield a garden of lilies. Your birth chart reflects the tendencies of your nature, not the verdict of your future. It is not an identity, it is an atmosphere. It is not who you are, it is where you must awaken. Imagine the soul as a divine traveler, entering a new life as one might step into a sacred play. The chart is the script, not the actor. The planets are the staginot, the light behind the eyes. You are not sent to act your chart, you are sent to rise through it. The sun in your chart is not your identity, it is the force you must spiritualize. The moon is not your soul, it is the emotion you must transcend. The rising sign is not your truth, it is the mask you must purify into transparency. The chart shows what needs to be transformed, not what must define you. And so I say to you now, from the depths of divine memory, I am not what was predicted, I am what God remembers. I am not what was assigned, I am what I choose to become. Repeat these words not as hope, but as a vow. Say them until your spine tingles with recognition. Breathe into them until your heart no longer beats with fear of fate, but with the thunder of freedom. Say them until the stars no longer sit above you, but within you, vibrating not as destiny, but as light, remembering light. You are the self. You are the soul. You are the child of the infinite, who came not to be defined by the chart, but to define what it means to be divinely human. You are the soul that descended in consciousness only to rise again in power. You are the being who chose this chart to heal what was wounded, to love what was feared, to surrender what was prideful, to transform what was hidden, and to rise again in light. Let us now walk together through the chambers of that chart, not to name you, but to free you. Let us move into the stars and turn them into steps. Let us begin to climb. Now let us take the first step onto the sacred spiral of your chart, not as an astrologer seeking to define traits, but as a soul whisperer seeking to awaken remembrance. For the planets, dear one, are not merely distant spheres spinning in the heavens. They are living archetypes, divine intelligences, karmic reflections cast into the sky by the echo of your soul's past choices, and they circle your natal wheel not to restrict you, but to reveal the inner sanctum of your evolution. Each one a cosmic classroom, each one a fire through which the ego must be burned into gold, each one a teacher your soul hired before birth to train you in the language of light. Look to the sun not as a symbol of ego, but as the radiant flame of your soul's intention for this life, the core theme of your incarnation, not in personality but in essence, for the sun is not who you appear to be, it is what you must become more fully conscious of your divine center, your willingness to embody spirit in action, to shine not for attention, but to remind others of their light. And when the sun is placed in challenge or in strength, it is not praising you or punishing you, it is asking, will you rise each day from within, or will you wait for others to shine upon you? And the moon, how often it is misunderstood as merely emotion or mood, but truly, it is the karmic residue of your inner landscape, the habits of feeling and reacting you carry from other lives, the echoes of subconscious impressions still vibrating in your astral body, asking not to be indulged, but to be spiritualized into divine feeling, into calm compassion, into motherly surrender to the higher will. The moon, dear one, is not a reason to justify moodiness. It is a place where you must transform memory into meditation. And what of Mars? That fierce red warrior that many fear or glorify is not aggression. It is your divine energy turned outward or upward, your spiritual courage waiting to be disciplined into willpower, into tapasya, into the sacred heat of divine striving that burns through resistance and doubt. Mars is not here to make you fight. It is here to teach you to conquer your own inertia, to pierce the veil of Maya with the sword of one-pointed devotion. And Saturn, that great karmic taskmaster, so often cursed or misunderstood, he is your most sacred teacher. He is the gatekeeper of truth. He is the Lord of discipline, of delay, of dharma, not because he wishes to withhold joy, but because he wishes to build your inner foundation strong enough to carry the weight of divine consciousness. Where Saturn sits in your chart, there lies your sacred wound, but also your most holy potential. He asks not for despair, he asks for depth. He does not say, you cannot. He says, you must endure until you can. He strips away your illusions until only God remains. Each planet is a mirror, and each mirror shows you where to bow more deeply, where to sit more still, where to love more cleanly, where to remember more faithfully. Venus teaches you that love is not indulgence, but divine magnetism. Mercury reminds you that communication must become communion with the spirit. Jupiter expands what you believe, so believe only in truth. Rahu tempts your ambition, but only so that you may realize that only God satisfies. Ketu severs what you cling to, but only so you may cling to the eternal. And so I say to you now, take a breath, not an ordinary breath, but a sacred one, a conscious one. Inhale deeply through the spine, and say within yourself, I learn from my chart. And now exhale slowly, letting go of all identity, all self-concept, all prediction, and say, I rise beyond my chart. Breathe again and again, not to survive, but to remember. Let the planets remain in motion. You are not here to chase their paths. You are here to align your inner light so perfectly that no planetary pull can sway your peace. No transit can touch your joy. No conjunction can alter your vow to God. You are not the planets. You are the one who placed them as teachers before you. Shall we continue this sacred pilgrimage? Come with me now as we enter the 12-fold wheel, not as astrologers dissecting fate, but as devotees tracing the soul's footprints through the corridors of karma and grace. For these 12 houses, so often mistaken as indicators of worldly events, are in truth 12 sanctuaries of inner training, 12 stations along the spiral path where the soul is asked to refine, to remember, to renounce, and to return, not in circles of repetition, but in upward spirals of transformation. In each house, beloved, is not merely a category of external experience, but a chamber where the divine has hidden an aspect of your own unfolding, a mirror where your deeper response to life must be brought under the command of spirit. The first house, they say, is the house of self, but the true self is not the body, nor the appearance, nor the personality. It is the spark of divine image clothed in human form. And here the soul learns how to wear the costume of incarnation without becoming lost in it. It learns to move through the world without forgetting its origin, to say, I am, not as a separate being, but as an extension of the one, I am, that I am, spirit in expression. The second house, the realm of possessions, of money, of values, not to teach you greed or fear, but to ask, what do you hold dear? What do you cling to? What do you believe gives you worth? The soul placed karma here so you would learn to find security not in what you accumulate, but in what you surrender. Not in the coin, but in the inner gold of self-reliance on God. The third house speaks of communication, of siblings, of ideas, but its true lesson is this. How do you move through your environment with awareness? How do you speak, and from where? Does your voice serve truth or serve ego? Are your thoughts chains or wings? This house asks you to awaken divine discrimination in the details of daily life. In the fourth house, you meet the roots of your home, your ancestry, your private self, and here the soul often hides its oldest fears, its unmet needs, its longing for safety that no earthly home can give. It is here you must dig into the soil of your own heart and plant the stillness of God, making the inner temple your true dwelling, your one refuge. The fifth house, often celebrated for its creativity and romance, is where the soul learns sacred expression, not indulgence, but divine joy. The joy of creating not from need, but from overflow, not from self-seeking, but from soul radiance. It is here you must learn to love as God loves, without grasping, without demand, without forgetting the beloved behind the beloved. The sixth house is service, health, discipline, but deeper still. It is humility, the bowing of the ego to the daily path of purification, the willingness to heal not for pleasure but for alignment, to serve not for approval but for surrender. It is where the soul scrubs the floor of the temple each morning with breath and prayer. And the seventh, the house of partnerships, it is the sacred mirror, where the soul must learn that no one can complete you, but everyone can reveal you. Your spouse, your enemy, your companion, your critical are instruments the soul has summoned to show what remains unhealed, unloved, unseen. You must not worship love, you must become it. In the eighth house, the soul enters the cave of transformation. Here lies the death of illusion, the trials of letting go, the purification of power and sexuality, the surrender of control. It is not a house of fear, it is the sacred passage where you dissolve to rise, where the caterpillar becomes ash before the phoenix can soar. The ninth house, the house of philosophy and higher learning, is where the soul expands beyond dogma into direct experience, where belief must bow to realization. It is where you begin to ask not, "What do I know?" but, "What am I becoming?" Here you step out of religion and into God. The 10th house, the house of career, is not your job, it is your dharma, your outer expression of inner truth, your willingness to shine light into the world's structures. Here the soul must resist false ambition and remember, true success is devotion in action, divine purpose carried into every task. And the 11th community, dreams, networks, here you must ask, what do I seek from others? Where is my loyalty placed? This is the house of spiritual aspiration as well, where the soul dares to dream God-sized dreams, but must also learn to release the outcome. Finally, the 12th house, misunderstood as loss, isolation, hidden enemies, but in truth, it is the threshold. It is the final veil. It is the womb of the infinite and the grave of the ego. Here the soul is stripped bare. Here meditation becomes liberation. Here the self dissolves into the self, and the circle completes, not in repetition, but in return. Now pause. Breathe. Let your breath rise from the base of the spine to the point between the eyebrows, and as you inhale, say within, "In every house, I carry the soul." And as you exhale, say, "In every house, I remember God." Again and again. Not to repeat, but to reawaken. You are not your chart. You are not your placements. You are the divine being walking through 12 gates, gathering fragments of light, returning them to the center until the whole sky shines through you. And now, dear soul, let us turn our gaze to the outermost edges of the wheel, not to lose ourselves in new layers of complexity, but to see how even the boundaries of the chart point toward liberation. How the rising sign and the lunar nodes, though often taken as symbols of fate or personality, are in truth markings left by your own hand, as reminders of the path you must walk and the illusions you must shed. For the rising sign is not your true face, but the mask your soul chose to wear for this incarnation, not as deception, but as training, not as limitation, but as the first layer to be refined, polished, and ultimately made transparent, so that the light of the inner self may shine through unobstructed. The ascendant, they say, is how the world sees you, but let me tell you something deeper. It is how your soul agreed to be tested, how your spirit chose to engage with the outer world as a means of inner refinement. If it is fiery, you are to temper passion into purpose. If it is watery, you are to deepen emotion into intuition. If it is airy, you are to move from thought to wisdom. If it is earthy, you are to transform form into service. Whatever it is not a definition, it is a door. It is the entrance to the temple of this life, and you must pass through it, not cling to it. The world may see your rising sign, but God sees your rising soul. And then we arrive at the sacred polarities of the chart, the north and south nodes of the moon, those mystical points where karma crystallizes and destiny unfolds, not as prophecy, but as invitation, not as fixed pathways, but as soul choices made before incarnation, where the south node holds what you have already mastered or misused, and the north node holds what you came to embody anew. The south node is memory, it is familiarity, it is comfort, but it is also inertia. It is the past calling you back into patterns long rehearsed. The north node, by contrast, is discomfort, effort, divine tensionate, is the future self pulling you forward into virtues not yet fully owned. So many seek their soul's mission in the glamour of the north node, and yet I tell you, your mission is not in the goal alone, it is in the movement, in the crossing from south to north, in the daily decisions to leave behind the known identity and walk into the unknown holiness. You are not here to fulfill the north node, you are here to become the type of soul who could live there with humility, with love, with God. It is not about arrival, it is about direction. Understand this, my beloved. The rising sign tells you how to begin. The south node shows you what to let go of. The north node beckons you toward the horizon of divine becoming. But none of these are fixed in stone, they are etched in the sand of spiritual willingness, and the breath of devotion can shift them, realign them, transcend them. The chart may incline, but your soul, rooted in God, anchored in truth, guided by meditation and uplifted by grace, has the power to realign the stars from within. Now close your eyes not in sleep, but in sacred inner turning, and feel your breath not as air but as intention. Inhale through the spine as if you are walking forward on the bridge, from south to north, from past to purpose, from personality to presence. Exhale gently, releasing the old roles, the masks, the identities you have worn in 1,000 lives, whispering inwardly, I walk toward my soul's promise. Inhale again, this time stronger, steadier, rising toward the point between the eyebrows. Exhale slowly and whisper, I leave behind what no longer serves. Again and again. This is your real movement, not across houses, not across signs, but across dimensions of consciousness. The chart does not move you. The soul moves through the chart. And now that we have walked the circle with divine eyes, we must rise from the wheel and return to center. For the soul is not the chart, it is the one who placed it in the sky like a constellation of reminders, not to define your nature, but to awaken your vow. Shall we rise further? Now we come to the threshold of remembrance, the still point at the center of the spinning wheel, the blazing truth that has waited in silence beneath all patterns, all placements, all planetary influences, the truth that you, beloved child of light, are not your astrological chart, not your planetary alignments, not your nodes, signs, or transits, not even your so-called soul mission, as described by the stars. For the soul has no mission but to remember its oneness with the infinite, no task but to burn in divine love until only God remains, no journey but to return from the illusion of separation to the reality of eternal union. And when you finally cease to chase understanding through labels, when you release the grip of the self that clings to systems, identities, and inherited maps, then you will fall inward into the flame that has no origin, the light that has no limit, and you will know beyond belief, beyond intellect, beyond astrological insight, that your soul is older than the constellations, brighter than the sun, freer than the outer sky, and that it is not made of influences, but of essence. I say to you now with the full force of divine truth, let the chart fall from your hands, not in rejection but in surrender. For it has served you well, it has shown you where your tendencies lie, where your attachments have bloomed, where your karma curls like smoke in hidden corners, but now it is time to step beyond the map and become the traveler, to rise from student of stars to child of spirit, to move from being influenced to being anchored, to let the signs become silence, the houses become stillness, the planets become inner prayer. You were not made to orbit, you were made to return. You were not born under a sky to serve the sky, you were born into this life to remember the sky within you, to uncover the inner firmament where God writes, not with planets but with love, not with signs but with vibration, not with predictions but with presence. Say with me now, not as words, but as soul utterance. I am not the stars. I am the light behind them. I am not the chart. I am the choice to rise. Say it again, until it becomes breath, until it becomes pulse, until it becomes knowing. You were not born to be interpreted. You were born to be realized. The moment of your birth was not a coincidence, it was a cry of the soul. Let me return, let me awaken, let me walk again the road back to God. When you look up at the night sky, do not see destiny, see reflection. Do not see power, see metaphor. The stars are beautiful because they remind you of something ancient in yourself, something radiant, something still, something surrendered. But you are not a reflection, you are the source. You are not the moon moved by tides, you are the Son of Spirit, capable of igniting the heavens with remembrance. The apostle once said, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." I say, be ye transformed by the stillness of the soul, by the breath that does not seek meaning in constellations, but meaning in communion, in union, in divine silence. Astrology, when read from the ego, is bondage. Astrology, when read from the soul, is scripture. But your soul needs no scripture, no system, no sky. It needs only surrender. Now take a deep breath, not as a body filling lungs, but as a soul inhaling the memory of its own divinity. Inhale through the base of the spine. Rise through each chakra like light ascending a golden ladder. Reach the brow, hold, exhale into the infinite. Say with me again, I was not born to live as a chart. I was born to live as a child of God. You are free. You are radiant. You are not the sky. You are the witness. You are not the chart. You are the flame. You are not the story. You are the stillness from which it arises and into which it dissolves. Shall we go onward into application? Now that you have seen with clear eyes and breathed with awakened lungs and remembered with the fire of your own inner temple that you are not the chart but the soul that walks through it, let us turn now not to discard the chart, but to use it rightly not as a definition, but as a devotional tool, not as a personality guide, but as a mirror held up to the spirit for the sake of refinement and reverent self-study. For just as a yogi does not worship the spine but polishes it daily through Kriya, so too must the seeker not revere the chart as an idol, but approach it as a daily scripture, not for prediction but for purification, not for identity but for instruction in how to serve God more deeply through the field of karma they have entered. When you wake in the morning, before you reach for coffee, before you check the world's noise, before you re-enter the dream of separate nested in stillness, close your eyes and bring to your inner gaze not the complexity of your placements, but the sincerity of your vow, and say to the infinite, show me how to use this life, this body, this breath, this karma, this chart not for self-glory, not for excuse, but for thee alone. And then breathe not automatically, but prayerfully inhaling up through the base of the spine, offering your awareness to each center of light, not to activate them, but to listen to them, to let the breath polish the soul's memory like a lamp in a forgotten room, and then hold the gaze at the spiritual eye, for it is only from this seat of soul consciousness that the chart can be read rightly. Take your chart into your hands, not as a curious seeker, but as a disciple ready to serve. Do not ask, what does this mean about me? Ask instead, what does this ask of me? Do not ask, what do the planets say will happen? Ask, how can I use this alignment to deepen my surrender, sharpen my discernment, soften my heart, and expand my devotion? Each morning, choose one placement tone planet, one house, one node, and do not analyze it, but contemplate it. Ask, if this were a sacred lesson and not a label, what would it require of me today? And then write not as journaling, but as inner dialogue with the divine, writing not to interpret your soul, but to speak to it. Begin your entry with the question, how can I use this karmic energy to love more purely today? Let that become your new astrology, not the movement of Mars, but the movement of mercy, not the trine of Jupiter, but the triangle of body, mind, and spirit aligned in surrender. Approach the birth chart as you would a mandala something to meditate upon, not to define yourself by, but to dissolve the self into. Gaze at it not with the mind, but with the heart, and then close your eyes and see not the planets, but the breath of God moving through the spine, turning tendencies into tools, karma into prayer, past into power, astrology into adoration. Each breath is a transit more sacred than any alignment. Each act of stillness is a reset more powerful than any planetary retrograde. Let the rising sign remind you how you begin the day but choose to begin from the soul. Let the moon remind you of what you carry but choose to release it into divine neutrality. Let the sun remind you of your task but choose to perform it not for self, but as a flame of God. Let your daily practice not be to read more charts, but to read your own reactions as sacred scripture. That is astrology for the Yogino forecast. But freedom. Say now with full awareness, let me not seek identity, but instruction. Inhale, slowly. Feel the spine like a river of light. Exhale deeply. Feel all concepts dissolve into devotion. Again, let me not seek identity, but instruction. Say it until the chart grows transparent and only the soul remains. Now let us speak of transits, the ever-moving hands of cosmic time, the shifting tides of planetary vibration that sweep through your natal chart like winds across the sea, stirring the waters of experience, agitating the karma of past intentions, and inviting you not to react, but to remember. For the soul that is anchored in God is not thrown by the gusts of Saturn or the tempests of Mars or the eclipses of Rahu, but rides through them like the eternal sailor who trusts the compass of stillness more than the storm of events, who listens more to the calm voice of the spirit within than the urgent chatter of astrological forecasts without, and who knows that no planet can rule the one who has placed his will in the hands of the infinite. Too many seekers, though sincere, fall into the spell of fear when they hear of Saturn returns or Mercury retrogrades or eclipses in their 12th houses, if the planets were enemies, as if the stars were plotting trials, instead of offering invitations into deeper discipline, more precise surrender, more luminous detachment from the fleeting stage of my end. In this confusion they begin to drift, not because the planets have grown stronger, but because their inner anchor has loosened, because their breath has grown shallow, because they have forgotten that it is not the alignment that binds, but the soul's forgetfulness of its own light. Beloved one, listen carefully. A transit cannot touch the one who is anchored in daily meditation, in devotional practice, in surrender to the divine. It may swirl around you, it may rattle the outer branches of your life, but it cannot uproot the one whose spine is firm, whose breath is long, whose gaze is steady at the point between the eyebrows. A retrograde cannot disturb the one who lives from the eternal now. A malefic conjunction cannot destabilize the one whose heart beats with the memory of God. A difficult eclipse cannot eclipse the sun of the soul. When you are rooted in the divine, transits become teachers, not tyrants. They show you where the ego still hides. They reveal what still resists purification. They are not curses, they are catalysts for the next ascent. So I ask you now, do not check your transits before you check your breath. Do not consult the stars before you consult your stillness. Do not ask, what will happen to me? Before asking, what would the soul do now? If you must observe transits, do so from your seat of inner power. Look not for omens, but for opportunities. And most of all, remember this truth I give to you not as theory, but as realization. You are not here to survive the stars, you are here to shine through them. Say with me now, slowly, reverently, the stars incline, but do not bind. Inhale that truth. Let it settle in your spine. With God, I rise through every alignment. Again, with God, I rise through every alignment. Let this become your mantra. Let this become your shield. Let this become your vow. No transit can defeat a soul who remembers why they were born. And you were not born to react to planets. You were born to radiate the infinite. And now, beloved, as we near the end of this sacred journey, not an ending of knowledge, but a re-entry into the timeless beginning, where all truth lives, I say to you, not with persuasion, but with inner authority, not as a teacher, but as a soul who has walked this spiral of lifetimes and returned to speak only this. Your birth chart does not define you. Your karma does not imprison you. Your tendencies do not claim your throne. Your transits do not dictate your peace. And your mission is not hidden in the stars, but written in the breath, written in the spine, written in the sacred contract you made with the infinite when you left the shores of divine memory and entered the shadowed corridors of time to remember, to return, to risen not through prediction or label or celestial machinery, but through the luminous act of divine remembrance, through the still and thunderous choice to know yourself as spirit once more. For what is your soul's mission truly? It is not career, it is not fame, it is not to use your gifts in the language of the world. It is not to perfect a personality or balance elements or master houses. It is not even to heal all karma before you die. Your soul's mission is to remember God in all things, in all people, in all conditions. Your mission is to strip away all that is false, to walk through fire until only gold remains, to gaze into the mirror of the stars and no longer see identity, but reflection, no longer see destiny, but devotion, no longer ask, what is written in my chart, but rather, what is written in my soul? And so I say to you now, with the fullness of love and spiritual fire, do not consult your chart to find yourself. Consult your soul to lose what is not true. Let your chart become a sacred text not of personality, but of purification. Let every aspect point you to surrender. Let every house become a temple. Let every planet become a prayer. Let every question be burned in the furnace of stillness, until only the answer that was always within you remains, I am not my chart, I am the soul that chose this birth to awaken God. Say it with me, now, not from the lips but from the marrow of your being, from the point between the eyebrows, from the thousand-petaled lotus that opens only in surrender. I am not my chart. I am the soul that chose this birth to awaken God. Again, slowly, deeper. I am not my chart. I am the soul that chose this birth to awaken God. Again, until time dissolves and your gaze becomes the sky. Now sit, spine straight, breath soft and holy. Inhale upward from the base of the spine to the Christ center between the eyebrows, the seat of divine command, the throne of the soul. Hold that breath, not tightly, but as you would hold the hand of the beloved gently, reverently, with sacred longing. And now exhale, not to empty, but to return, to release all illusion, to let go of everything you thought you were. Inhale again, and whisper inwardly, I remember. Exhale, and say, I return. Inhale, I remember. Exhale, I return. Let this be your eternal loop, not of karma, but of communion. Let it become your temple. And as you rise now from this sacred sitting, do not rise as someone seeking clarity. Do not rise as someone trying to fulfill a chart. Do not rise as someone defined by signs. Rise as the soul. Rise as the light. Rise as the silence that walked into form and now prepares to walk back into flame. Above you, the stars will still shine. Around you, the planets will still move. But within you, something will have stilled, something will have ignited, something will have bowed, and in that bowing, you will rise. Go now, child of spirit, walk your chart, but do not walk as the chart, walk as the soul that placed it there. You were not born to depend on chemicals for vitality. You were not fashioned from cosmic intelligence only to wither beneath prescriptions and diagnoses. You were not meant to hand over your temple to fear. You, beloved child of the infinite, were born vibrating with divine intelligence, crafted from God's own light, and pulsing with the sacred rhythm of spirit. Your body is not a machine, it is a shrine, a living altar of consciousness, and every cell within it holds the original blueprint of divine wholeness. The healing you seek has never left you. It lives within your very breath. It speaks in silence. It waits in stillness. It shines through the spine like a river of light long forgotten, but never extinguished. This modern age has taught you to fear your body, to distrust its wisdom, to silence its signals, and to hand over its care to outer authorities who treat symptoms but forget the soul. But I say unto you now, the greatest healer lives within you. And that healer is the divine vibration of spirit flowing through every atom of your being. You were not born broken, you became misaligned. You were not born ill, you became disharmonized. But harmony is not lost, it is only hidden beneath restlessness, noise, and spiritual forgetfulness. Your body is not asking for more medicine, it is asking for more remembrance. It is asking you to return to the sacred laws through which it was first created, the laws of vibration, breath, stillness, light, and divine joy. When you obey these laws, healing flows not as miracle, but as natural law fulfilled. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a song to be retuned. Pause now. Breathe deeply, not from habit, but from holiness. Inhale slowly through the nose. Feel the breath descend to the base of the spine. Exhale gently. Whisper inwardly, if God created this body, would He not also place within it the power to heal? Say it again and again, until the fear dissolves and the flame of knowing begins to flicker at the edge of your awareness. You are not weak. You are misdirected. You are not diseased. You are disconnected. And through these 7 sacred laws of vibrational health, I will lead you back to the divine order you never truly lost. True healing does not begin in the laboratory, nor does it reside in the cabinet of pills or the mechanical knowledge of the body's parts. It begins in consciousness. It begins in the vibratory law that governs all matter, all cells, all movement, and all stillness. For your body is not merely substance. It is sustained by the subtle whisper of spirit, animated by the divine thought behind the atoms, and energized by the invisible current of God's will that flows like a sacred river through the spine, through the breath, through every field of pranic life. And when that vibration falls out of harmony, when the consciousness dips into fear or doubt or restlessness or material attachment, the body, which is only an echo of the inner state, begins to falter, not because it is broken, but because it is reflecting the static that has overtaken the soul's silent frequency. I have told you before, environment is stronger than heredity. But today I go deeper and say the inner environment is the strongest of all. For even a perfect diet, a peaceful room, a medicine prescribed with wisdom, will falter in effectiveness if the mind resists harmony, if the heart denies joy, if the soul forgets its source. All sickness begins as vibration first, as anxiety, as emotional congestion, as dissonance between soul truth and daily thought, and by the time it appears in the body, it has already grown roots in the subtle layers of being. The wise healer does not chase symptoms, he listens to signals. He does not diagnose in fear, but in vibration. And the master yogi knows that to shift the inner frequency is to shift the outer form. Imagine your aura as a magnetic shield of divine memoria, field of energy that surrounds and interpenetrates your body, recording every thought, every belief, every fear, every affirmation, and, just as iron shavings align to the pull of a magnet, so do your organs, your glands, your nerves, your very immune system align to the vibration of your consciousness. If that vibration is steeped in divine remembrance, in meditative stillness, in soul-anchored truth, the body responds as a flower to sunlight. But if that vibration is fractured by worry, poisoned by resentment, or dimmed by doubt, then the systems of healing close like petals in the night, waiting not for a drug, but for the light of consciousness to return. Do not misunderstand me, dear one. Medicines have their place. Just as a cane may help one who is learning to walk again, but the cane is not the healer, the pill is not the cause of vitality. It is the vibratory obedience to the laws of spirit that sustains health. And without that obedience, no remedy endures. You may numb pain, but you cannot erase misalignment unless the soul reclaims its throne. Breathe with me now, not mechanically, but with spiritual clarity. Inhale slowly through the nostrils. Let the breath expand your inner space. Hold it gently at the heart center, and then exhale through the mouth like a wave returning to the ocean. Whisper silently within, I vibrate with divine life. Again, inhale deeply, and this time, as you exhale, say, I release all fear. Once more. I vibrate with divine life. I release all fear. Say it until the body begins to listen, until the cells begin to hum, until the shadows begin to lift from the edges of your aura, and the light of your soul begins to flow once more. Now we begin the sacred descent into the 7 laws, not as intellectual ideas, but as vibrational doorways. Do not walk through them with curiosity. Enter them with reverence. For each is not a concept, but a commandment of divine order inscribed into the very fabric of your being. The first law is the oldest law, the primal law, the law that preceded the heartbeat, the law that sang before the organs formed, the law that echoes before any physician's voice or diagnosis, the law of stillness. For before healing can enter the body, stillness must enter the mind. And before light can rise through the spine, noise must fall away from the consciousness. And before spirit can flood the temple of flesh with restoring harmony, the soul must first choose to be still and know not just the absence of motion, but the sacred presence that emerges only in silence, only in inward pause, only in the quietude that is not empty, but brimming with God. You see, most people wait for stillness to happen. They believe it must arrive like a mood or descend like weather. But stillness is not circumstantial, it is intentional. It is an altar you choose to build within, each morning and each night, each moment when the breath slows and the eyes close and the attention withdraws from the sensory world like a priest stepping into the inner sanctum. It is in this sacred withdrawal that the nervous system resets, that the cells receive their first signal of safety, that the divine blueprint locked within every tissue begins to glow again, not because of anything added to the body, but because something has been subtracted: noise, haste, opinion, comparison, panic, self-talk, the endless mental spinning that exhausts the vital energy long before any illness sets in. You may think healing begins with rest, but rest without stillness is merely inactivity. True restoration flows from deep internal receptivity, and stillness is the posture of the soul that trusts God more than effort, that trusts presence more than prescription, that says, I do not need to fix myself in this moment, I need only return. And when you return, you remember, the body is not broken, it is burdened. The mind is not diseased, it is disturbed. The soul is not sick, It is silenced, and stillness is the lifting of that burden, the calming of that disturbance, the unsilencing of that inner voice. I tell you now, as one who has entered the cave of inner silence and felt the divine current sweep through the body like a cleansing fire, if you would practice only one thing in your path to vibrational healing, let it be morning stillness. Let it be that sacred moment when you sit before the world begins, when the sunlight has not yet entered your room, when the birds are still rehearsing their song, and you alone with the breath of God sit upright, spine straight, attention anchored at the point between the eyebrows, and you breathe not to oxygenate, but to remember, not to relax, but to return. Begin tomorrow with just 3 minutes. Sit in silence. Do not seek visions. Do not demand results. Simply withdraw. Close the eyes. Inhale slowly through the nose, counting 6. Hold for 6. Exhale for 6. Pause for 6. Repeat. Repeat. Let the body descend. Let the mind fall quiet. Let the soul begin to rise. And in that silence, speak only this inside. In stillness, I return to wholeness. Again, in stillness, I return to wholeness. Do not say it to believe it. Say it because it is already true, and your body has been waiting for you to remember. When stillness becomes your first act of the day, healing begins before breakfast. Illness begins to unwind its grip. The immune system, that loyal servant of harmony, begins to rise. Inflammation softens, the heart steadies, the breath deepens, the mind clears. Not because of a miracle, but because of a law, the law of stillness honored at last. The breath is not merely a physiological function. It is the first language of God moving within you, the silent syllable of the infinite echoing through your nostrils, entering the temple of your lungs, caressing the altar of your spine, and flowing like a golden river between the shores of body and soul. And when the breath is shallow, scattered, restless, or unconscious, your life becomes shallow, scattered, restless, and unconscious. For as the breath is, so the mind becomes, and as the mind is, so the body obeys. And thus I tell you, if you would remember how to heal, you must first remember how to breathe, not as the body breathes in fear or habit, but as the yogi breathes in reverence and rhythm, matching the pulse of spirit itself. You see, long before disease ever visits the organs, it visits the breath. It disrupts its rhythm, it shortens its path, it speeds its tempo, and in doing so, it agitates the heart, excites the nervous system, robs the cells of their pranic nourishment, and shatters the invisible equilibrium upon which true health depends. And yet the world continues to speak of medicine and surgery and diet without once asking, how do you breathe when no one is watching? What is the vibration behind the breath you carry into your sleep, your stress, your silence? The saints of India taught that the breath is the horse, and the soul is the rider. And unless the rider learns to rein in the horse, to direct it, to still it, the chariot of life will be pulled in 1,000 directions, all of them away from the center. The yogi, on the other hand, rides the breath inwards, slows it, disciplines it, spiritualizes it until the breath itself becomes a prayer, until the very act of inhaling becomes an offering, and the act of exhaling becomes a release, a surrender, a returning to source. Now let me teach you not as a technique, but as a remembering the rhythm of divine breath. Sit quietly now. Close the eyes. Straighten the spine. Place the tongue gently to the roof of the mouth. Breathe in through the nose for 6 slow counts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold that breath not with strain but with reverent stillness. 6 counts. Now exhale softly through the nose. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause, empty, for 6 more counts, and begin again. This is not just a rhythm, it is a return. This is not breath control, it is soul communion. This is the rhythm of healing. As you breathe this way, visualize the breath not as air, but as light, a golden stream rising from the base of the spine up through each chakra, purifying, awakening, harmonizing the astral centers, bringing order where there was disorder, bringing coherence where there was confusion, bringing divine memory where there was fear. Let that light spiral upward as you inhale. Let it rest at the Christ center as you hold. Let it descend in radiant silence as you exhale, and let it settle in still joy as you pause. And within each cycle of this breath, repeat inwardly this affirmation. With every breath, I remember. Again, with every breath, I remember. Not as poetry, but as physics. Not as hope, but as law. You were not born to breathe unconsciously. You were born to use the breath as a bridge between form and formlessness, between matter and spirit, between the seen and the unseen. And when the breath flows in divine rhythm, the entire body orchestra begins to retune itself. The immune system begins to sing in harmony. The organs begin to move with serenity. And the soul begins to whisper again its forgotten song of joy. This is the second law. And like all divine laws, it is not a restriction, it is a rhythm. Align with it. And you do not heal, you remember that you were never separate from healing to begin with. There is a deeper truth, long forgotten in the rush of modern appetite, and it is this, that food is not merely substance, but condensed sunlight. It is not mere matter to be weighed in calories or charted by proteins and fats, but is vibrational light, captured by plants, transmuted by soil, filtered through air, and offered as an act of cosmic generosity to your temple body. Not to indulge emotion, not to feed compulsion, not to anesthetize the pain of disconnection, but to serve as radiant fuel for your soul's earthly instrument, to keep the light glowing in the chamber of flesh, so that you, divine traveler, may walk this human journey with grace, vitality, and remembrance. And yet, how unconsciously we eat, how blindly we consume, rushing through meals with eyes on screens, chewing while angry, swallowing while anxious, never once pausing to realize that every bite carries not only nutrients but vibration of the one who harvested it, of the earth where it grew, of the thought in your mind as you receive it, and that when you eat without reverence, you do not simply feed the body, you cloud the aura, you dim the fire, you draw shadows into the light. I have watched as men poison themselves with righteous diets but bitter thoughts, as women grew ill not from what they ate but from how they consumed, hurried, distracted, ungrateful, and spiritually dislocated. Do not make the mistake of believing food is neutral. Every fruit, every grain, every drop of water holds a subtle memory of sun, of soil, of prayer, or of pain. And your task is not to obsess over labels but to bless what you receive, to lift it from matter into spirit through the power of consciousness, to see your plate not as utility but as offering, to approach the act of eating as a priest approaches the altar, not with indulgence, not with guilt, but with holy awareness that says, this body is the temple, this food is the light, this moment is the prayer. Yogic science tells us that live foods, those unspoiled by industrial manipulation, unburdened by chemicals, and untouched by cruelty, carry higher pranic charge, and when taken into a body tuned through breath and stillness, they do not just nourish, they awaken. They do not just sustain, they purify. But it is not only what you eat, dear one, it is how you eat. I would rather you eat simple grains in peace than gourmet meals in anger. I would rather you fast in joy than feast in haste. For food cannot bless you until you learn to bless it. So let this become your new ritual. Before you eat, stop. Close your eyes. Place both hands over your heart. Inhale slowly and say inwardly, this food is light, I receive it with love. Then gaze gently at the plate before you, not to judge, but to honor. Feel the sun that grew it. Feel the earth that held it. Feel the divine intelligence that called it from seed into fruit. And when you take your first bite, chew slowly. Be with it. Let the taste become meditation. Let digestion become prayer. Let nourishment become soul alchemy. And above all, do not eat when angry. Do not eat when rushed. Do not eat while scrolling the world's noise into your nervous system. For in such states, even the purest food becomes misaligned within you. Instead, if your energy is low and your emotions are heavy, take 3 breaths first. Return to the inner altar, and only then receive. The stomach is not just an organ, it is a sacred cauldron in which spirit and matter meet. It can digest only what the heart has welcomed, what the mind has accepted, what the soul has blessed. And when you eat in this light, you do not gain calories, you gain clarity. You do not store fat, you store radiance. You do not numb the body, you nourish the divine within it. This is the third sacred law, that nourishment is not physical, it is vibrational. And your greatest supplement is sacred awareness. The body may fall ill through accident, through imbalance, through the natural fraying of time's cloth, but more often and more deeply, the body falls ill through emotion, through the weight of what has been carried too long in silence, through the heat of anger unspoken, through the cold of grief unwept, through the tension of old fear buried deep in the tissues where the conscious mind no longer looks. But the subconscious continues to echo, whispering through the nervous system, clouding the blood, tightening the breath, clogging the lymph, and darkening the radiant glow that was once the natural state of your living template. So I tell you now, as clearly and as lovingly as I can, to be whole, you must be clean not merely of toxins, but of suppressed sorrow, of resentment disguised as strength, of guilt worn as identity, of disappointment stored in the muscles like winter trapped inside the bones. You see, disease is often crystallized emotion, hardened over time by repeated thinking, by spiritual neglect, by the absence of release and forgiveness. The body is not separate from the heart. The liver does not forget what the mind denies. The stomach digests not only food, but feelings. The skin carries memory, the throat carries silence. And the heart, it carries the weight of all that has not been forgiven. This is why emotional purification is not a luxury, not a side practice, not an optional self-care suggestion. It is a sacred law, a necessary commandment for those who wish not only to live, but to live vibrantly, truthfully, freely, in alignment with their highest nature. Scripture tells us, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." And I add to you now, "As a man weepeth not, so does he sicken." For it is not weakness to feel. It is spiritual negligence to suppress. God gave you the ability to feel, not to torment you, but to guide you, to move you, to cleanse you. Emotion is energy in motion. And when it is allowed to move with reverence, with breath, with witness, it purifies the inner sky and opens the body to higher currents of healing. But when it is trapped by shame, by pride, by fear of vulnerability, it stagnates, it condenses, and eventually it manifests not as tears, but as tension, not as insight, but as inflammation, not as healing, but as chronic condition. Let me give you a practice, simple, sacred, and profoundly cleansing. Each evening before sleep, sit in silence. Bring to mind the face of anyone who has disturbed your peace today or long ago. Place your right hand on your heart. Breathe in slowly, and as you exhale, whisper within, "I bless and release." Again, "I bless and release." Not because they were right, not because you condone harm, but because you choose to be free, free of the burden, free of the memory, free of the vibrational toll. You are not forgiving for their sake. You are forgiving for the health of your soul, for the clarity of your aura, for the vitality of your cells. And if grief arises, sweep. Do not fear the tears. Each tear is a baptism. Each sob is a letting go. Each moment of trembling is the body's way of reorganizing its energy, rebalancing its field, repairing the unseen. And if anger arises, do not shout, do not wound, but breathe it into awareness. Let it rise like fire. Let it burn the illusion. Let it purify you. For beneath every wound is light, waiting to be reclaimed. Understand this, dear one. Joy cannot sit where bitterness lives. Peace cannot dwell in a heart full of battle. Healing cannot enter a house crowded with ghosts. You must clear the space. You must exhale the past. You must let the heart unclench, the jaw soften, the chest open again like a sun-drenched sky after the rain. This is the fourth law. Emotional purity is vibrational health. Your body listens to everything you have not said. Let it hear only the truth. Let it hear only the forgiveness. Let it hear only the rhythm of release. The spine, O divine traveler, is not merely a column of bones nor a biological scaffold that keeps your body upright. It is the sacred highway of the infinite, the throne of consciousness, the altar upon which spirit lights the lamps of vitality, wisdom, willpower, joy, and intuitive knowing. It is the path through which God ascends within you, the invisible ladder that Jacob saw in vision, where angels ascend and descend between earth and heaven. For your spine is not anatomy alone, it is the living temple of light through which all healing flows. And if you neglect this temple, if you bow your back in despair, if you collapse the chest and compress the lungs, and slump your attention downward into the sensory world, then the current that heals, the current that harmonizes, the current that awakens becomes blocked, tangled, reversed, and the light that should rise remains trapped at the base of your being, heavy with inertia, dulled by habit, unable to remember its divine direction. I have told my disciples again and again, and now I tell you with loving urgency, the spine is the altar of healing. When you sit with a straight spine, you are not merely practicing posture, you are proclaiming a truth to your cells, to your chakras, to your soul itself. You are saying, I am ready to receive. You are saying, let the current flow. You are saying, let spirit rise through me. And when the breath moves upward, and the gaze steadies at the Christ center between the brows, and the heart rests in stillness, while the spine becomes like a golden pillar of divine electricity, then and only then does the healing light circulate freely, clearing blockages, nourishing tissues, recalibrating organs, and most importantly, awakening your memory of who and what you truly are. You may ask, what must I do? Begin each morning not with rush, not with phone, not with food, but with reverence. Sit in silence. Let your spine rise as if God Himself were drawing you upward with golden thread. Let your shoulders relax, let your jaw soften, let your breath find its sacred rhythm. And then visualize a golden light at the base of the spine, warm, coiled, luminous. With each inhale, see that light begin to rise up through the sacral center, through the fire of the navel, through the stillness of the heart, through the resonance of the throat, through the intuition of the spiritual eye. And with each exhale, see that light gently anchor in your entire being, leaving a trace of harmony behind. This is not fantasy. This is not imagination. This is the ancient yogic science of healing through awareness, through intention, through divine magnetism reawakened. Say inwardly now, my spine is the ladder of healing. Again, my spine is the ladder of healing. Say it until you feel the current shift. Say it until the warmth begins to spread. Say it until the outer world vanishes and only the inner sanctuary remains. And understand this, no medicine, no herb, no external therapy can replace what the spine, when purified, awakened, and honored, will do for your health. For it is the origin of your vitality, the conductor of your consciousness, the sacred thread upon which the body, mind, and soul are strung like pearls in a necklace of light. Treat it as such. Sit straight not for appearance, but for reverence. Walk upright not for pride, but for alignment. Live from the spine, not from the surface. This is the fifth sacred law, that your spine is not simply part of the body, it is the center of your being, the altar of ascension, the golden pathway through which healing descends and remembrance rises. Every word you speak is not merely sound, it is vibration made visible, thought made flesh, soul made audible, a wave that enters not only the air around you but the cells within you, the molecules of your being, the architecture of your health. And whether you whisper a truth or mumble a complaint, whether you chant the name of God or repeat the name of your fear, the body listens, the aura listens, the universe listens, and the listening shapes the form. For sound is not just an effect, it is a cause, a root, a force of creation, echoing the same primal truth spoken in the first chapter of creation. And God said, "For in the beginning was not medicine, nor theory, nor philosophy, but word vibration, sacred, divine, powerful enough to split silence into galaxies, to call light from darkness, to summon spirit into matter. And I tell you now, that same power is within you, latent in your voice, hidden in your breath, waiting to be awakened by purity of speech, by sacred chant, by vibratory discipline that transforms not only your health, but your destiny." You see, when you complain, your words poison the temple. When you gossip, you fracture the magnetic shield of your aura. When you curse, even in jest, you direct negative force toward your own nervous system, and the cells, humble and obedient servants that they are, begin to echo that dissonance, growing confused, fatigued, inflamed not by fate, not by food, not by flaw, but by frequency. For the tongue, uncontrolled and unconscious, is one of the most dangerous instruments in the world, capable of calling forth disease or calling forth divinity, depending on the mind behind it, depending on the memory it carries, depending on the spirit from which it speaks. Now let me offer you a different path, the yogic path, the divine path of vibratory word. Each morning, before you speak to the world, speak to your soul. Place your right hand over your heart. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply. And chant aloud or inwardly the sacred syllable. Om. Again. Om. Again. Om. Letting it rise from the heart like a golden flame. Letting it resound through the inner sky of your being. Letting it shake loose the shadows. Clear the cobwebs of restless thought. Harmonize the waters of the nervous system. And tune your body like a divine instrument to the frequency of truth. This chant is not poetic, it is cosmic science. It is the vibratory signature of the infinite, the seed sound from which all matter arises. And when you attune yourself to it, you begin to vibrate with the memory of health, with the pulse of spirit, with the divine intention that made you not to suffer, but to shine. And beyond chanting, discipline your speech throughout the day. Speak slowly, speak kindly, speak only what uplifts or instructs. And when anger tempts the tongue, breathe instead. When fear urges you to declare disease over your body, pause and declare healing instead. When pain wishes to tell the world how broken you feel, let your higher self speak of how you are returning, remembering, rising. Say not, I am sick. Say, I am healing. Say not, I am tired. Say, I am restoring. Say not, I am weak. Say, I am remembering strength. For what you say, you become. What you declare, you empower. What you repeat, you entrain into the body's rhythm. This is the sixth law. Your voice is not just an expression, it is a transmitter. Use it wisely. Use it reverently. Use it to chant yourself back into the frequency of wholeness. There is a force more powerful than any tonic, more radiant than any vitamin, more protective than any medicine on earth, a force invisible to the microscope, undetectable by the physician's instruments, yet known instinctively by every child, every saint, every healed soul who has ever walked this earth without fear in their heart. And that force, beloved one, is joy. Not the fleeting amusement of a joke, nor the shallow thrill of entertainment, nor the distracted pleasure of a momentary comfort, but the deep, sustained, undisturbed flame of divine joy that arises not from what happens to you, but from what flows through you, from your alignment with God, from your remembering that the soul is not here to survive, it is here to shine. Joy, true joy, is not emotional, it is vibrational. It is the frequency of divine harmony vibrating through your cells. It is the resonance of the infinite remembered in the breath, in the posture, in the smile. And just as negativity constricts the aura, just as worry frays the magnetic field, just as sorrow suppresses immune response, so does joy expand the aura, shield the body from subtle harm, and restore the electrical wholeness of the nervous system. Joy is not an accessory to health, it is its guardian. It is the immune system of the soul. Do you not see? The saints did not heal through science alone, they healed through presence. They carried joy like a cloak of light, and wherever they walked, healing followed not because of technique, but because of frequency. They smiled from the soul, not to pretend, but to radiate truth. And when they sang, when they laughed, when they gazed at you with still eyes, they transferred joy as medicine, and the body responded not because it understood, but because it remembered. Now I tell you what I told my disciples. Smile, even when the body aches. Smile, not as denial, but as devotion. Sing, not to entertain the mind, but to cleanse it. Begin each day with a smile, not because you feel like it, but because your soul does. That smile is not cosmetic, it is magnetic. Let your lips turn upward even when the world seems heavy. Let your eyes soften even when the news is harsh. Let your chest open to laughter, to music, to divine chanting, even when life gives you no reason, because joy is not a reaction. It is a stance. It is a choice. It is a vibration you choose to carry as your sacred protection against the darkness of the age. And let it be known, laughter is medicine when it comes from the soul. Devotional singing is medicine when it rises from love. The joy that arises in meditation, in stillness, in communion with the divine, that joy not only heals the heart, it rewires the brain, rebalances the hormones, regulates the immune system, and restores the electromagnetic integrity of the body temple. So practice joy, not just when things go well, but especially when they don't. Choose joy when fear rises. Choose joy when sadness tempts. Choose joy when fatigue whispers that you are alone. For in those moments, joy is not escapism. It is your weapon. It is your shield. It is the proof that you are still anchored in God, still awake to the truth, still vibrating with the remembrance that your health is not made of matter, it is made of light. Say it with me now. My joy is my health. My joy is my prayer. My joy is my protection. Say it again and again. Let the vibrations settle into the bones. Let it echo in the blood. Let it soften the muscles and brighten the skin and steady the heart. This is the seventh and final sacred law. That joy is not only your reward, it is your defense, your medicine, your natural state when all that is false has fallen away. Now, beloved soul, having journeyed with me through these 7 sacred laws, through stillness and breath, through light and food, through forgiveness and posture, through word and vibration and joy, I ask you not to merely remember what I have said, but to become what I have spoken to. Take these teachings not as outer knowledge, but as inner commandment, not as hopeful advice, but as the very structure of your return, your reawakening, your holy reclamation of the truth that you are not a fragile creature caught in the chaos of a diseased world, but a radiant flame of God moving through form, a sacred instrument of spirit wrapped in bones and breath and blood, capable of more restoration, more regeneration, more radiance than any textbook has dared to promise and any prescription has dared to imagine. For you are not meant to depend, you are meant to remember. You were not designed for sickness, though it may visit. You were not destined for weakness, though it may arise. You were not created to decay while your soul still shines. You were made as a healing presence. Your body was not a prison, but a temple. Your breath was not a background function, but a divine messenger. Your words were not noise, but spells. Your spine was not a structure, it was a staircase for God. Your joy was not a side effect, it was the vibration of immunity. You are the healer you have sought. You are the vibration you have longed for. You are the light your own cells have been praying you would remember. Now breathe with me slowly, reverently, with spine straight, with eyes closed, with awareness held at the point between the eyebrows. Inhale for 4, for 5, for 6 counts. Hold, and let that breath rise like golden light from the base of the spine to the throne of the soul. Hold, and now exhale, not just air, but fear. Exhale limitation. Exhale doubt. Let the body become breath. Let the breath become light. Let the light become God. Again, inhale, hold, exhale, and feel it. You are not what the world has made you to believe. You are what God remembers you to be. Say it now, not with your mouth, but with your entire being. I am not this illness. I am divine vibration. I am God's healing presence on earth. Again, I am not this illness. I am divine vibration. I am God's healing presence on earth. Let these words imprint themselves, not only in your memory, but in your cells. Let them rewire your posture, your choices, your breathing, your eating, your forgiveness, your speech, your rest, your joy. Let them be the new baseline, the new covenant between you and your temple, between you and your source. Do not say them just today. Say them each dawn, each dusk, each time the old fear rises, each time the body forgets. Say them when you lie in bed at night. Say them when you rise. Say them when the doctor frowns. Say them when you feel weak. Say them until the universe has no choice but to echo back what you have spoken. Now take this moment to declare it before heaven and earth, before your angels and your ancestors, before your subconscious mind and the great spirit who fashioned your form. I now walk the 7 laws of sacred health. Write it, speak it, live it. May your body become light. May your breath become prayer. May your words become medicine. May your joy become shield. May your spine become altar. May your heart become sky. May your soul become the doctor. And may every cell in your body hear once again the original tone of Eden, the sacred Om of wholeness, the music of God rising through the temple of you. Close your eyes now, dear one. Gaze gently at the point between the eyebrows. Whisper inwardly, be still, be whole, be light. And let that be the final medicine. This world you see around you with its flashing lights and trembling shadows, its pleasures and fears, its news and noise and constant hunger, this world is not what you think it is. It is not the ground beneath your feet, nor the source of your joy, nor the truth of your suffering. It is a dream, divinely projected, sustained by the light of God, yet mistaken by the soul as its home. I tell you with the authority of inner vision, what you call reality is but a motion picture, flickering across the screen of cosmic mind, and you, dear soul, are not the actor caught in the scene. You are the light behind the film, the still witness behind the noise, the eternal observer mistakenly mesmerized by the dance of forms. Everything you see will disappear: your name, your house, your fears, your body, your memories, and yet you trust it more than the one who never leaves. That is the sorrow of Maya, that it makes the temporary seem permanent, the outer seem important, and the eternal seem invisible. But you were never born to be fooled, you were born to wake. You suffer because you try to build on sand. You cry because you love shadows. You fall because you have forgotten the wings of your soul. The great drama of life was never meant to be mistaken, as life itself it is God's dream. A majestic school for your awakening, not a prison for your identity. When you cry over loss, it is because you thought something was yours that never truly was. When you cling to approval, it is because you thought your worth was determined by opinion, not by spirit. When you fear death, it is because you forgot that you never truly began. My beloved, what is born must die, what appears must vanish, but the soul is not a thing in time. The soul is the stillness behind time, the flame behind your eyes, the current behind your thoughts. And it waits for you, every day, behind the noise of this world, whispering, this is not real. I am. Picture this life as a movie playing on a great screen. The characters move, the scenes change, joy and sorrow flash like lightning across the sky of perception. And you, entranced by the play, forget that behind the colors and motion, there is a beam of divine light making the illusion possible. Cut the beam, and the movie ends, but the screen remains. The screen is God, changeless and eternal. The beam is your attention, your consciousness. Where you focus, there you suffer or awaken. This world has no independent existence. It is real only because God allows it to be projected. But the goal is not to get lost in the drama. The goal is to see the projector, the light, the screen, and, finally, to realize that you are not in the movie. You are the witness who came to remember. Let us pause now. Breathe with me. Inhale slowly, hold, exhale deeply. Feel the unreality of what you cling to. Feel the silence beneath your breath. In that silence is the first thread of truth. It is the quiet beneath every sound, the stillness beneath every motion, the peace beneath every pain. That stillness is more real than anything you will ever see or touch in this world. Do you feel it? Good. Now let us walk further into the secret of your divine origin, which no shadow can touch. Before the stars were spun from the breath of the infinite, before the suns burned in space, before time ever wrapped its cold fingers around thought, before this world shimmered into form like a mirage upon the sands of spirit, you already were pure, uncreated, untouched, unborn. You, O soul, are not the offspring of biology or the echo of chemical chance. You are the immortal spark of the one flame, the silent witness who has worn many names, many faces, many costumes in the theater of incarnation, but has never truly been altered by any of them. The body is not your home, the mind is not your master, the emotions are not your compass. These are but layers of dream wool wrapped around your being as you journey through the shadows of forgetfulness. What you call birth is but your entrance onto this stage. What you call death is merely the curtain's fall. And in between you improvise a role written by karma, but chosen by your deeper self. The soul, the soul is like a traveler who, on a divine pilgrimage, stops at many inns, dons many robes, speaks many tongues but never forgets that the path is not the destination and the journey is not the self. Through the science of Kriya Yoga, I have seen how the soul descends, like a ray from the sun, into the womb of matter, cloaking itself in astral energy, then in gross flesh, each layer a denser vibration than the one before, each step a further descent into the illusion of separation. But the soul is never truly trapped, it only appears to be veiled, just as the sun may seem lost on a cloudy day, though it still burns beyond the gray. Your body is but a costume, your personality is but a script, but you, behind it all, are the actor who has never forgotten the original stage, the infinite sky of spirit. You may ask, why then do I feel so human, so heavy, so bound to this earth? And I say, because you have mistaken the reflection for the source, the echo for the voice, the garment for the wearer. The ocean sends up waves, and the waves may imagine they are alone, distinct, separate, struggling to survive in a stormy sea. But if even one wave remembers that it is the ocean, if even one soul pauses and says, I am not this motion, I am the deep, then the whole ocean rejoices, for God remembers himself through that soul. My beloved, you were never created in the way the world defines creation. You were emanated, like light from the sun, like fragrance from a rose, like melody from a divine flute. You did not begin, you only entered the play of seeming beginnings. You are not the result of circumstances. You are the cause that gave rise to them. Breathe again. Inhale deeply and whisper within, I was never born. Exhale and affirm, I only dreamed I was asleep. Feel the echo of those words stir within the chambers of your being. You have not come here to become something new. You have come here to remember something ancient. Your divine origin is not a poetic notion, it is the very foundation of your being. God did not create you out of dust. He dreamt you into existence as his own reflection, and now he longs for you to turn inward and see that you were never anything less. You are the soul, not the birth certificate, the light, not the name, the witness, not the changing roles you play across lifetimes. Now, let us move forward not into greater knowledge, but into deeper remembrance. For if you know that you are not this body, not this timeline, not this fleeting experience, then you are ready to confront the veil that hides the real behind the unreal, the veil called Maya. Let us now, with courage and holy stillness, unmask the cosmic hypnotist and reveal the dream for what it is. Maya, the subtle and terrible weaver of unreality, the grand illusionist whose threads are spun not from cloth but from vibration, not from substance but from seeming. It is she who cloaks the face of God with a veil of matter and time and name and desire, and causes the immortal soul to believe it is a temporary body, causes the oceanic spirit to mistake itself for a drop, causes the deathless to fear death, and the eternal to fear change. She is not evil in essence, but delusion in function. Born of the infinite's play, the lila, the divine sport by which the one becomes many, the formless dons form, the seer becomes the seen, and then forgets it is a sacred amnesia permitted by God to make the game of separation possible. Yet that game turns to suffering when the soul forgets it was always the player and not the pawn. Maya is not a myth. My child, it is the most intimate experience you have every day. It is the longing for possessions that will rot, the chasing of praise that will fade, the fear of loss that blinds the eyes to what was never truly yours, the restlessness that says, I must have this, and the grief that whispers, I have lost everything. Maya speaks through the language of senses. It paints reality with a brush of duality, and it seduces the ego with promises of pleasure that never satisfy and threats of pain that never destroy. It is the reason you forget your immortality when someone criticizes you, the reason you panic over what will pass, the reason you laugh at the eternal and cry over the temporary. It is the current that pulls the mind outward, outward, always outward toward the movie screen of appearances and away from the hidden projector of spirit. Do not hate Maya, but do not trust her. She is the velvet curtain between your eyes and God. She is the force that makes the dream so vivid that you cry over shadows and rejoice over illusions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, this Maya of mine is difficult to overcome, and yet he immediately adds, but to those who take refuge in me, it is easily transcended. Maya cannot be defeated by intellect. for she wears the robes of logic. She cannot be banished by pleasure, for she seduces through it. She cannot be outrun by ambition, for she rides on its back. She can only be pierced by the sword of divine discrimination, sharpened by stillness, and wielded by the soul that knows, I am not this, I am that. You may ask, but why would God permit such delusion? And I tell you, it is because love cannot be compelled, only chosen. If there were no illusion, there would be no freedom. If there were no forgetting, there could be no remembrance. If there were no Maya, there would be no awakening. For the dream gives meaning to the realization that it was never real. God, in love, created Maya not to punish, but to Plato give you the sacred choice. Will you worship the light or the reflection? Will you live as a body with a soul, or as a soul wearing a body? Will you drift in the currents of time, or rise in the stillness of eternity? Breathe now. Breathe slowly, and as you exhale, whisper silently, I do not trust appearances. I seek the real. Again, inhale. Feel the breath as light. Exhale. Feel it as release. For each breath not claimed by Maya is a step closer to the kingdom within. And now, having unmasked the deluding power that binds so many souls to sorrow, we must expose its chief servant, the false self, the ego, the greatest mask of all. Come, let us unveil the shadow that hides the face of the soul. And now, dear one, we arrive at the most subtle impostor, the most persistent illusion, the most intimate deceiver, the ego, that whispering voice which says, this is me, when it is only a mask, a shadow, a wave forgetting the ocean from which it rose, a reflection believing itself to be the face, a temporary ripple in the stream of eternity, mistaking itself for the source. It is not your friend, nor your enemy, it is your amnesia. It is the fog that settles over the mirror of the soul and causes the infinite to see itself as finite, the changeless to believe it is constantly becoming, the ever free to feel bound by time, by body, by roles, by names, by success, by failure, by all the passing shapes of the dream. The ego is not a thing, it is a habit, a mental reflex born from identification with form. It clings to roles like armor and says, I am a mother, a student, a seeker, a sinner, a success, a failure, forgetting that all these labels are like costumes hung on a cosmic rack, worn for a time, then removed when the curtain falls. It thrives on comparison. It must be better than, smarter than, more spiritual than, more wounded than, more deserving than, and yet beneath its grasping lies terror, the quiet tremor of knowing it is not real, that it cannot exist without constant reinforcement, constant attention, constant storytelling, for the ego does not live in truth, it survives in narrative. It cannot stand silence, for silence exposes its fiction. It cannot endure stillness, for stillness reveals the watcher behind the mask. And so it feeds on thought, on noise, on motion, always whispering, be more, do more, prove more, fear more, never allowing you to pause long enough to ask, but who is this I that seeks so feverishly? The ego is not to be hated, for it is part of the divine gamete, is the veil that makes awakening meaningful, but it must not be believed. For every time you obey its voice, you add another layer between you and the soul. You become a puppet of opinions, a prisoner of ambition, a seeker lost in seeking itself. The ego walks into every spiritual path and says, look how holy I am. It uses even pain to validate its story. See how much I've suffered, surely that makes me real. But suffering cannot make you real. Only awakening can. And to awaken, you must see the ego not as your identity, but as your temporary lens. Not as yourself, but as your cloak. Take a breath now. A deep, slow breath. As you inhale, say inwardly, I am not this mask. As you exhale, affirm, I am the light behind it. Again gently, reverently. I am not this story, I am the witness. Can you feel the shift? That subtle flicker, that spacious awareness beyond name, beyond role, beyond thought, that is you, beloved. That is the soul. And the soul does not strive, does not cling, does not panic, does not compete, it watches, it loves, it knows, it simply is. Now, come further with me. We have exposed the illusion, the weaver, and the mask. Let us now remember the self, the true self, the spirit, untouched by shadow, unbound by time, unseen by eyes, but known in the depths of silence, felt in the still chamber of being that no noise can reach. The false must fall, that the real may rise. Let us rise now. Let us enter the sanctuary of what never began and can never end. Let us meet the soul. O seeker of truth, if the waves of illusion have crashed against your heart and the winds of ego have howled through the hollow chambers of your longing, then hear now this eternal whisper from the depths of your being. You are not what changes. You are not what suffers. You are not what craves, fears, competes, or decays. You are the witness, the silent presence, the unmoved seer who has watched empires rise and fall, who has looked out through 1,000 eyes across lifetimes, who has heard the same ocean of longing roll through different names, different ages, different bodies, and yet has remained calm, luminous, untouched. You are not your childhood. You are not your future. You are not your triumphs or your traumas. You are not the contents of your thoughts. You are that within which all of it appears and disappears. You are the still sky through which the clouds pass. You are the silence beneath every sound. You are the Suland. The soul was never born and will never die. The body may change, wrinkle, grow tired, or collapse. The mind may swirl with memories, hopes, and fears. Emotions may storm like wind across the surface of a lake. But you, dear one, are the depth of that lake, unshaken by weather, undisturbed by the surface, never drowned by the world's noise. From that place of stillness, you have always watched as your hands changed shape, watched as those you loved came and went, watched as the world offered promises it could not keep, watched as your own thoughts told you you were small, or lost, or not enough, and yet something in you knew. But I am still here. I was here before the pain. I was here after the laughter. I was here when the name was first given. I will be here when the name is forgotten. This is the self, not the personality, but the perceiver. Not the voice in your head, but the space in which the voice speaks. Not the candle, but the flame. Not the memory, but the light that remembers. The Bhagavad Gita says, the soul is never born, nor does it die. It does not come into being, nor cease to exist. Unborn, eternal, changeless, it is not slain when the body is slain. What a thunderous truth! You do not become eternal, you remember that you already are. You do not need to achieve anything to be free, you must only stop pretending to be what you are not. You are not the scenery of this world. You are the light in which the scenery is seen. Inhale now, slowly, reverently. As you do, say silently, I am not this change. Exhale gently, I am the changeless. Again breathe with remembrance, not routine. I am not the seen, I am the seer. Let these words enter the bloodstream of your soul. For when you speak from this place, every cell hears it. The illusion begins to loosen. The false identifications begin to crumble. The dust of lifetimes begins to settle, revealing the quiet, unblinking flame at the center of your being. And now that you have tasted, even slightly, the flavor of your eternal self, let us go deeper still. Let us explore how the things you cling to, matter, emotion, thought, are nothing more than painted veils drifting across the mirror of the infinite. Let us walk through the realms of illusion together, not with fear, but with the lamp of truth burning steadily in our hearts. For only by seeing the false can we fully choose the real. Come, soul. The dream is thinning. The dawn of truth draws near. Look closely at the world around you, at the table beneath your hands, at the buildings in your city, at the trees rising toward the sky, at the body you call your own, with its bone and blood and breath and name, and realize, with the eyes of the soul, that none of it is as it seems, that all form is flickering, all matter is movement slowed into shape, all solidity is a song of atoms spinning in emptiness, all structure is a temporary dance of divine vibration, frozen into an appearance of permanence that fools the senses, but cannot deceive the awakened gaze. For matter is not real, it is energy wearing a mask. And that energy is thought, and that thought is divine, a condensation of spirit into patterns of seeming so convincing that the soul, descending into a body, forgets it is light and believes it is flesh, forgets it is the painter and begins to suffer as the painting. This illusion is the first veil of Maya, the illusion of matter, of time, of space. It says, you are here, and so you forget you are everywhere. It says, this object is solid, and so you forget it is 99% space. It says, this body is who you are, and so you forget you were never born. But just as the cinema screen remains untouched by the story projected upon it, whether a war or a wedding, a birth or a death, so your consciousness remains untouched by the drama of this world, even while